think Tevez going to Juventus, what a coup that was for me. I mean,
on a head-to-head battle, Atletico Madrid can do more damage to Barcelona than the other way around.
Either he's really blind or he's fixing the match. I can't see it any other way.
It is an upset. You would expect Man United to go and win there.
Over $1 billion was paid in transfer fees between the clubs in Europe.
And Bayern Munich are going to be favourites for me against anybody at home in the world. The 03-04 season, actually, Olympiacos have won 8 of the last 10 domestic league campaigns, so there is only really one team in Greece, which we kind of already knew.
Because things have been pretty much decided, just as a quick glance before we go through the table, PSG is going to lock up this thing with one more point. Monaco's solidly in second place. Lille is going to be in that Champions League qualifier position, 7 points ahead of Saint-Etienne. If you're a serious talent, you're going back and you're playing for Santos. You're going back to play for, like in Argentina, for River Plate or Boca Juniors, or you're going to Europe.
He looked like the Ryan Giggs of old. He was more creative than any player on the pitch. He made Mata look stupid. He made Rooney look silly.
I am your host, Joe Usello. My co-host, Rob Rojas. My trusted co-host, Ben the Machine. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 57 of Low Limit Football. I am your host, Joe Usello. Glad to be back live and streaming on the airwaves as we had a little bit of a site glitch last week. There is still a site glitch that still exists, but we do have a new server. That new server is up and running, and that's where you're listening to tonight. I apologize for having to have everybody listen in via the link on Twitter, but we will have a website up and running in the near future and hopefully be able to run with that. First and foremost, our co-host Ben the Machine is not available tonight. He's still a little under the weather, so we want to wish him well, and hopefully he gets well soon, and hopefully we'll have him back next week. First off, let me send it over to deep in southern Connecticut, Rob Rojas. Rob, what's going on, man?
I'm doing great. Hope for another good show tonight.
Yeah. We we're coming on the heels that even though we didn't live broadcast last week, in terms of our views on YouTube, it was actually our highest, our most downloaded show of the year, or actually of our existence. So that was pretty neat. Maybe we shouldn't live broadcast anymore, but I do miss the availability of having the chat room, which hopefully we'll get back in a few weeks, and we'll be sort of back to normal here. Joining us from the hard streets of cold, icy Toronto, Sir Bob, what's going on tonight?
Thanks, Joe. Glad I could give the ratings a huge pop like that.
There you go. See, we've been missing the boat all this time. We just needed to add you. And I thought our ratings were going to go down because we'd lose a listener, but I guess I was way wrong on that one, huh? So tonight, like I said, we got a great show. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to have Oluwada Lotfi back to join us. He joined us previously in the qualifications for the African Cup of Nations, and that tournament kicks off this weekend. So we're going to talk about African Cup of Nations. We are also expecting later on tonight at about 7:30 Eastern, our second guest of the evening, which is Alex McMahon, who is the soccer editor for Houndsports. He's going to join us to talk about all the Balon D'Or proceedings today. Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, Manuel Neuer, the World 11 that was announced today, all that sort of stuff. So we're going to, Coach of the Year, we're going to get into all of that with him later on. And then we're going to close out the evening with a guest who I'm thankful was able to listen to us last week through Skype, but is going to be joining us tonight to chat about American football. Another advocate for promotion relegation, that is Jon Townsend. So he's also a writer for These Footy Times. We're going to have him on as well. So Rob, I'm going to kick it over to you real quick because I know we've got about 10 minutes here before Oluwada's ready to go. Wanted to talk about the Asian Cup that is running. Sir Bob, before I give it to Rob, I know we've had this discussion and I know you absolutely hate world competition because of what it does to the club football scene. I am of the opposite. I feel a great deal of pride in watching people play for their country. To me, it's a special honor, and any chance you get to do it, it's great to watch. So I did get a chance this morning on beIN Sport to catch a little bit of the UAE Qatar match in the Asian Cup as this tournament kicked off. I believe it was last week. So, Rob, I'm going to send it back over to you quick before I let Sir Bob butt in and rebut me, because I know Yaya's over in the African Cup of Nations. So let's talk about the Asian Cup that's going on right now. We've currently got a couple of groups. We're currently in group play. It kicked off on January 9th with Australia beating Kuwait 4-1, and we've been moving through the groups here. What do you want to tell us about the competition to start, Rob?
Well, it's obviously a tournament that's not given it much attention, mostly in Europe and North America, for that matter. But if you look at the squads that the Asian countries have been able to bring, you look at many players like South Korea, for example. You have Son Heung-min from Bayer Leverkusen, who's been doing well. Sorry. You have Japan, also a strong contender for this tournament, with players such as Keisuke Honda from Milan, Nagatomo from Inter, and so on, Kagawa from Dortmund. So I think this is a tournament that's been highly underrated to the general public, and it's been nothing but interesting so far. I've been looking at some few results and been shocked at some of them.
Well, I think one of the things about this particular tournament is there's such a vast gap of talent from the top teams like your South Koreas and your Japans, and then you head down to your Qatars and your Saudi Arabias that just on the world scene just don't do nearly as well, unfortunately. But it's going to be interesting. You know, I had mentioned to you in the pre-show when we were chatting with each other that if Qatar does manage to hold on to the 2022 World Cup, I saw them play the UAE this morning, and the UAE absolutely just destroyed them 4-1. And I'm just thinking to myself, please put us in Group A. Please put us in Group A, because it's rather than be in the group of death, that would kind of be the group of life at that point, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree.
So you know, of the players, who do you think will end up being the player of the tournament, and who do you think will win this tournament moving through?
I think this is going to be a really close tournament between Japan and South Korea. I imagine that being the final. Obviously, Australia being the host, they have to play a final match against South Korea in Brisbane, as they are the host nations as well. So I think whatever happens in that match, whoever wins it has a strong chance of making the final, which I believe will probably be Japan, the reigning Asian champions. And in terms of player of the tournament, I'm not sure yet. I think it's a bit too early to say, but if I had to choose player, I think it's going to be Keisuke Honda, just because of his good performance for the national team and how well he's been doing so far in Italy. And
that Australian side, obviously, in the 4-1 win over Kuwait, they Tim Cahill scoring a goal, and Michael Jedniak, who plays for Crystal Palace, scoring a goal on a penalty kick in that one as well. So sometimes, and they're kind of in, I guess, a quote-unquote group of death, because they've got South Korea in that same group with them, but it does help to have a +3 goal differential after having beaten Kuwait so soundly. With this one, I'm just kind of taking a look at the groups here quickly before we move forward, because I wanted to take a look when that Australia-South Korea match is going to happen.
On 17th, next Saturday.
That is correct, next Saturday. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any television for this in the United States, is there?
Yes, there is actually. One World Sports.
Oh, okay. So you can
but
catch
it's if you're willing to wake up very early for these matches, then
that's true.
Be my guest.
Yeah,
that match is at 2 a.m.
But that certainly would be, well, on a Saturday at 2 a.m. You never know that, some people are just rolling into bed. You just stay up a couple more hours, and what the heck, it's Sunday,
Exactly.
But that would be certainly a match to watch in the group stages. And then with 4 groups, they're going to end up, the winner of that group will end up paying the second place between Uzbekistan, China, North Korea, and Saudi Arabia. We dealt with a couple of 1-0 matches there. Uzbekistan 1-0 over North Korea. Saudi Arabia losing to China 1-0. So currently Uzbekistan and China in the driver's seat for to advance there. But like I said, the winner is going to get the second place team between Australia and Korea, and the loser's going to get the first place team out of that group. So it's just not a pretty sight. So and then Japan, you look at it on the flip side with Japan's group, Iraq, Jordan, and Palestine. Iraq actually has been playing very well. I would say over the past year, I think they made it pretty close to qualification for the World Cup out of Asia previously, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be always a tough team to play. Iraq beating Jordan 1-0, and the Iraq-Japan game is actually coming up on Friday the 16th. So that could be certainly an interesting one to watch in that group, because you'd expect both Japan and Iraq to advance there. And looking on the other side of the ledger for Group C, I would say the class of that group is, despite the UAE 4-1 victory over Qatar, I'd say Iran is probably the better team of the two there. I just wanted to go look at.
Sorry, do you mind if I say something?
No, please go ahead. I'm going to look up.
I was actually looking at the squads of that Asian Cup, and there's one certain player on the Iraq team named Justin Moran who isn't Iraqi. He isn't Iraqi born. He was born and raised in the United States, and because of his family and blood, he decided to represent Iraq just last year.
Wow.
The national team.
Do you have a little more background on the kid, like where he went to school and
Yeah. It says here he attended a school in Michigan, then went on to play 2 years of college soccer at in Arizona.
Okay.
And he became he went All-American.
Oh wow. What school did he play at in Arizona?
Arizona, some school named Yavapai College.
Okay.
I guess it's probably a D2 or 3 community college.
Okay.
So, and he's currently on the Columbus Crew at the moment.
Oh wow. Well, so it's
Sounds like a Canadian. I know.
We'll get. I think we can get to Tesho Akindele before the end of the night. That's for sure. But just looking at this as you're doing that, I wanted to look up the Iranian team, because that was kind of the one that interested me, because I think that's a solid side. Carlos Queiroz is the head coach, the Portuguese coach. Yep. And this one, this one caught my eye. The goalkeeping coach for the Iranian national team is Dan Gaspar. So, Dan Gaspar is a pretty famous coach here in the United States. He's the head coach. But they have a couple of players. They have a bunch of players playing foreign, off of out of the Arabian Peninsula. They have a goaltender that plays in Portugal. They have a midfielder that plays, who's the captain of the team. It's Havad Nekunum, who is a 34-year-old midfielder that plays at Osasuna. They've actually got 2 players at Osasuna. They have somebody that plays for Charlton Athletic, and they also have a forward that plays at Rubin Kazan over in Russia. So,
I guess I could just say that this Iranian side wasn't easy. I mean, you look at that match they had against Argentina; it was a really tough match. So, and it gave a lot of people a bit of attention. It's like, wow, what is this Iranian side that has been able to almost beat Argentina if it wasn't for a 1-0 goal by Messi in the last minute?
Right.
It was really interesting.
Sure. Now the the UAE squad all play except for one player. They all play in the UAE. Hamdan Al-Kamali plays for Valletta in Malta, but otherwise they are all national players, national sides that play there. So that's a pretty interesting side. Like I said, this is a team that really put one on Kuwait. I'm sorry, not on Kuwait, on Qatar 4-1. But I think the result's a little skewed. I think that this Qatari team is probably not nearly as good as 4-1, and the Iranian side is much better than a 2-0 victory over Bahrain on the opening weekend for them. So, but I think in the end, the UAE result will certainly buoy them to second place. I don't think they beat the Iranian side, and the Iranian side will end up playing the second place team, which will probably be Iran-Iraq, which is an interesting, nationally speaking, it's an interesting matchup, as they fought a 10-year war, if you recall, in your history. Yep. So that would be something to watch. But you think, would you take of the 3 favorites? I would say there are 3 solid teams here: Japan, South Korea, and Australia. Of those 3 teams, if you had to pick one right now, which one would you pick?
In that group?
Yeah, if you had to pick one of those 3 teams to win this entire competition, what do you think?
I'm going to say Japan, South Korea, or Australia.
Yeah, but which one, if you had to pick one?
Oh, Japan.
You take Japan. Sir Bob, how about you?
South Korea.
You take South Korea? All right, then I'll be the contrarian. I'll take Australia. It'll make it easier. We'll just
So at least one of us will be right.
we'll cut. Well, you never know. You never
Exactly.
know.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna, as we're sitting here chit chatting, I'm gonna just take a look at our first guest and make sure he's ready to go for us. But anything else that you want to talk about that happened in world football this week, Sir Bob? I'm gonna throw it over to you. You know, anything that you want to get off your chest?
I don't really think so.
I guess I can mention something if that's all right.
Yeah.
CONCACAF U20 results.
Yeah, I did see that Canada lost earlier today to Mexico 1-0.
Yep. And
I seen the United States lost a game they had no reason to be losing.
losing to Panama 1-0, and they won.
Wow, that's ridiculous, really.
Yeah.
And tonight, not tonight, sorry.
Tomorrow, I think.
Tomorrow, they play Aruba in Kingston.
Yep.
While Canada plays El Salvador.
Okay. So yeah, we'll have to keep a closer eye on that U20 tournament as well for the CONCACAF region.
That is a bad result for the United States, though, right? Losing that one.
It's a horrible result, you know. All right, so let's go for it here, and and we'll have Oluwada on in a moment here. But I'm excited because I was doing the homework on this, the upcoming African Cup of Nations, the tournament, the final that's going to start this weekend. Just some great teams and some great players. So joining us now all the way from France is Oluwada Lotfi again. Oluwada, it's Joe Usello from Low Limit Football. How are you tonight?
Thanks God, I'm fine, and it's a pleasure to be invited by yourself.
Oh, thank you again for coming on. We've got a big week of prep leading up to the African Cup of Nations tournament coming up this weekend. Give me your opening thoughts on the tournament. What do you expect to see overall?
Personally, I think we will see probably the most open tournament we have seen since ages. Mm-hmm. No team this year, except in my opinion, but it's only my opinion, Algeria looks above the rest. So I think we will have probably the most open tournament for since ages.
Okay, it's this Algerian side does look very, very strong, and something that we were commenting on just before we came on the air about the group of death, basically between Ghana, Algeria, South Africa, and Senegal. This group, and it shows you how far African football has come, I would say, over the past 10 years, because if we took that Group C that we have in this tournament and threw it into a World Cup competition, it could easily be considered a group of death.
Yes, I think the Group C as you said previously, the group of death of the African Cup of Nations. I think you have Algeria who are back from a fantastic even on the continental scene. Sorry, a fantastic 2014 year. You have also Senegal who are getting back on the scene with some great expatriate player like who are shining in England, like Dembaba. He's not called up. You have Mamdou, you have Moussa Sow, you have Shekou Kouyaté, guys like that, and you have Ghana, the eternal powerhouse, who is also in quite a rebuilding process with Avram Grant, the former Chelsea man, and you have the surprising South African side, which is in a rejuvenating process with with their coach, and they are unbeaten at the moment for 11 matches, if I'm not wrong, in a row. So yes, I think it's the most explosive group with Group D.
Okay, I'm going to throw you over to Rob Rojas, who has our first question. So, Rob, go on ahead for your first question to Oluwada.
Hi, Oluwada. It's good to have you back on the show. Yeah. My first question is, do you feel that if Wilfred Boney has a good performance in the African Cup of Nations, do you feel that Manchester City picked the right choice to get them?
I think personally, I was very, as everybody, I was very excited to see him moving at Manchester City, and I was happier to be honest to see the deal sealed off. I'm not sure, but it's close to be officialized in the coming days, right?
Yes, that is correct.
So I think it's a good point because it will let him focus totally on the African Cup of Nations for his performances with the Nation Cup with the national team. I think it's quite a general problem, because in the past years, and yes, since this supposed and between big brackets called the golden generation of Ivory Coast didn't stop to bottle it. So every player like Didier Drogba, even Yaya Toure, Kolo Toure didn't meet the expectation. With this sort of generation, you expect them, for instance, to win at least one title in the last years, but they didn't even manage to get one. So I think it's more a general problem, and with what we have saw in the qualifiers and in this last in yesterday friendly game against Nigeria local team, it will be quite tough if they didn't move to the next level. So their performances. So I think yes, it's more a general problem for Boni and the rest of the team.
Do you feel they're a strong contender to win? Just to follow up. Do you feel that they're a strong contender to win the African Cup of Nations following their horrible performance 2 years ago?
You are talking about Ivory Coast, right?
Yes.
Oh, I would say, to be honest, from what I have saw in the past, from what I have saw in the last month during the qualifiers and during yesterday friendly game, I have big doubts, to be honest, to see them for instance, in the last four. So because they are very fragile defensively. If I'm not wrong, they conceded 10 goals in 6 games during the qualifiers. And they didn't look as creative as in the past. Yesterday, for instance, they managed to break Nigeria local team. Local teams means with only players who were playing in the local league. And with all my respect, a big team would have beat this Nigerian team, but Ivory Coast didn't put a great performances and were saved by a moment of brightness of Salomon Kalou, an individual skill. So I think this goal yesterday probably sums up perfectly in which situation Ivory Coast is in at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Sir Bob for any questions.
Hi, good evening, Oluwada. It's nice to talk to you all the way in Africa.
I'm in France.
Yeah, he's in France.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I would like to ask you about Ghana. Of course, we all know they were the winners of the Under-20 World Cup in 2009 and looked to be the team that was going to take the world by storm. But largely they have failed to fulfill that promise. And with Ghana stagnating perhaps more than any other team on the continent, and with the appointment of Avram Grant, which wasn't hugely popular, but they still have a very strong team on paper. I'm wondering, what do you see for them this tournament and going forward?
Yes, as you said fairly, I think, yes, they didn't meet the expectation we all have, and even world football specialists have after the 2009 World Cup they won, and the fantastic World Cup they do in South Africa in 2010. I think, yes, they are quite stagnating, but they have such a great pool of players that I think even with they manage, for instance, with such a group of players and a very average coach, they still manage to reach. For instance, last edition they managed to semi-finals. So I think it won't be surprising to see them there again, because they have, as I said, yes, they have such a great pool of players, but it seems that everybody, it's with all my respect to the previous coach and to the coach at the moment, I think everybody probably can take Ghana to out of a group. Even this time it will be tougher than in the past. So yes, I think now, even I talk, for instance, with Ghanaian fans or journals, they only want the title after years and years of frustration. You know, the last time they won the title, it was in I think Ronald Reagan was still the president, so it gives you an idea. I think it was in yes, they won the AFCON in 1982. Yes, so I think it was quite. I think that they are more than fed up by waiting for the title. So.
Do you think it's possible, or do you just see them getting out of the group?
To be honest, the group is very tough, but getting out of the group possibly, but to the title, I would say it will depend on which choice are made, on which choice made by the coach, especially on the defensive. On the defensive part of the team, so because they are quite fragile, to be honest, on the defensive sector. You know, they qualify for AFCON. Everybody was disappointed, you know, because they qualified for AFCON in a certain way, quite difficultly. But it was very difficult, you know. But when you look at the point they have, I think they have 13, if I'm not wrong. So you can, if you only check numbers, you would think they have fly over the group. But when you see the displays and some displays, for instance, the display against Uganda again in at home in if I'm not wrong in Accra, yes, or Kumasi. Yes, you think when you look properly at each game, they are not quite exciting like in the past. There's no crushing. There are many goals which have been conceded, but you know they have still this capacity and this inherent capacity to make the job, and it's enough, you know, to qualify to qualify and without any big problem, you know, as we can say.
Okay, and I just wanted to ask you one more thing about one of my favorite footballers, Yaya Toure.
Yeah.
He won the African Player of the Year for the fourth straight time a few days ago.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, where does he rank on the all-time list of African footballers?
Personally, I'm still, as I am I'm very tough in my criteria. I'm still waiting for him. As I tweeted just few seconds before he get the title, I tweeted that now I am waiting for him to do something in his career with his national team. I think it's the only thing which is missing to his trophy cabinet. So I'm only waiting for that, because if he I think he should be, if he is a so great player, I think he should be able to have the same form, or at least to be a leader in his team, in his national team. So
I think a lot of the criticism with the Ivory Coast team is that they're a team of superstars and individuals, and not really a team.
Yes, definitely, and you can see in the former editions that they smash everybody, you know. But every team, I think that they beat Benin, for instance, they beat teams like that, Burkina Faso in 2010, etc., and in 2008, etc. I think everybody can recall and remark that each time Ivory Coast met a tactically strong team, they crumbled easily. For instance, 2006, they beat Nigeria in a final, but they get crushed in semi-final. Sorry, but they get crushed, for instance, in group stage against Egypt. In 2008, they get crushed against Egypt again. 2010, they get crushed by Algeria again. Also, 2012, they get crushed by Zambia. They get beaten, by Zambia. And 2013, probably the last chance, in my opinion, they get beaten by Nigeria and in quarterfinals. And the most important thing you can say by all the team which beat them were that all of the team which beat them were all tactically very, very tough to break, and they have a great, they were very cohesive. They respect the plan imposed by the coach. They have some very skilled players, and they didn't, I think they didn't in a certain way respect, and they didn't fear the big names like Yaya Touré, Didier Drogba, Salomon Kalou, and I think that was also one of the most important thing, the psychological aspect of the team, which were literally they were literally fighting the Ivory Coast, and Ivory Coast were almost never able to respond except with some flashes of individual exploits. So I think yes, that's my biggest, and we see that also during the last qualifiers. They played 2 times. They played, for instance, they were in a tough group, yes, but they played, for instance, Cameroon. They get crushed, and they managed to snatch a disgraceful, to be honest, a pathetic draw at home, and they get beaten by by Congo in Abidjan. So yes, I think the fact that when the opponents are quite tough to break and tactically very good is probably the biggest problem Ivory Coast was facing and is still facing at the moment.
All right, thanks a lot, Oluwada. I'm going to send you back to Joe now. I think he's got a couple of questions for you.
I do. First question that I just had messaged to me by one of our listeners is, what are your thoughts on the South African side going through the tournament? What's your outlook on their team? How do you think they'll perform overall?
Personally, I was very surprised to see them getting qualified of such a tough group, because they were underperforming since 6 years, to be honest. They look very very solid defensively. They have but there was a sentence which was, for me personally, which was very frightening. Their own coach, Sheikh Mashaba, said that he is not a tactician. Could you imagine a coach saying such a sentence? I think it's quite, personally, it frightens me, because he said he's not a tactician, so it means that he won't, and he is not able to respond to an answer to the the tactical challenge imposed by the other team. It means, for me. So I think, and he's quite also he's only imposing the patriotical values, etc., etc. And I think personally, yes, it's great to love your country. Yes, it's fantastic to sing the anthem. But I think it's good also to have technical player. It's not enough to play with the pride with pride of the nation, etc., etc. So I think it's quite enough. It's not enough, to be honest, to climb mountains, as we say. So yes, I think they are quite a good team, but they are tactically, defensively, very impressive. But I have fear about what their coach in the qualifiers said, and but that's only my fear.
Okay. Also it's a team struggling with the death of their goaltender that was murdered. That can't be. Yeah. So that it's certainly a tough hill to climb. And then when you put them into this group of death, I think I don't see them being able to overcome all of those things against an incredibly good Ghana side and an Algerian side that is easily favored to win. And we haven't even talked about Senegal, which is actually the team that I wanted to talk about next. Senegal has actually been in the news over the past week, or this Senegal side more specifically is the status of Diafra Sakho, the striker for West Ham, who I guess by all descriptions that I've heard has suffered a back injury and is not able to fly to Senegal to be checked out by the Senegal medical staff. Then they had offered to have the staff come up to England to take a look at him, and they refused that. Where do we stand on the status of Sakho, first of all, and then of course Sadio Mane, who's another key piece of this Senegal side, but more importantly, Sakho because of the mystery with his injury?
Yes, for the Sakho case, I heard also that the Senegalese federation wants him to have a medical checkup in Senegal, because they have big fears, and it's very understandable, because they have big fears that his club doesn't want to let him take part to AFCON, and same way for Sadio Mane, when you have some relatives of him who are saying that he has only a minor injury, when Southampton doctors and are saying that he is definitely out for AFCON. So I think it's quite a very controversial problem, because we have many players who have been declared out of AFCON in the last days, and even today, for instance, with Tunisia. So I think it's quite the problem for Senegal. But to be honest, apart Sadio Mane, they have the quality to replace Diafra Sakho. They have Moussa Sow, they have Mam Biramdiouf, who is fantastic with Stoke City. They have but for Sadio Mane, I think if he's really injured, his forfeit could be very crucial for Senegal, because he's quite the only playmaker, the real playmaker of the team. So I think it could be a very big problem if he's really injured, because he's the playmaker of the team and the only, I would say, source of creativeness, and the only link between the midfield and the strikers, and the only one also who can provide, for instance, through balls or disturb defenses with runs. So I think his forfeit could be crucial for Senegal. Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to send you over to Rob. Rob, I believe, has another question. So go ahead, Rob.
Yes, I just have a few more last questions. Do you think that this is going to be a good tournament for Pierre, Aubameyang, and Gabon moving forward?
Oh yes, I think I have personally put Gabon as my surprise package team. They are getting they are more and more impressive, and they have emerging youngsters like Didier Ibrahima and Dong, the former CS Sfaxien player. They have, as you said previously, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. They have Bruno Ekwelemanga, also the one of, if I'm not wrong, I would say not Cardiff City. Is he playing in Cardiff City? Because I saw he signed in England, but
I'm sorry. Who is the player?
Bruno Ekwelemanga. He came.
Yeah, he's
from,
still at Cardiff City.
Yes, that's him. They have him. They have Didier Ovono, a man, quite a voyager, to be honest. He played in Guatemala, in Salvador, in France, in Belgium. So they have some quite young, talented youngsters and some experienced players, like I said previously, Ekwelemanga, the Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. So I think. Yes, they are certainly my surprise package, especially with when you see the part of the part of the tournament they have. If I'm not wrong, they would face the Group B winners or runners up if they came out of the group, it would be probably Tunisia, Zambia. So I think it's quite yes. I think they could be the surprise package, and to beat one of those two teams, to get in semi-finals. I think yes, they could surprise many people with they have quality players. A shame, I think, a shame that the player from Marseille, the Mario Lemina, who refused the call-up, very disappointing, because he would have been a wonderful addition to the team.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pass it over for Joe.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
I do. I just have one more question, then we'll let you go. And again, thank you for joining us tonight. My last question is a very simple one. Who's going to win this tournament? Who do you think will win?
Oh, that's a very tough question. I would just I would say I would say for me, I have a favorite all over who are all over the rest. I would say Algeria, but African Cup of Nations, is a tournament of surprises. So I think it's quite tough to define who will win the title and the African Grail. But in my opinion, Algeria are the closest country, and in all ways, to be honest, technically, tactically, they have the former Lorient coach Christian Gourcuff. Technically, they have amazing players. I think yes, and they were also very, very, very impressive in qualifiers. So I think for me they are far ahead the rest, and you have also some teams just you have some teams behind them. You have Cameroon, for instance, who are in a rejuvenating process. You have yes, Gabon, as I said previously, but Cameroon also, Tunisia, who made also quite good qualifiers. So I think it's as I said, it's a quite open tournament. So, but Algeria have my favors, and it will be fully deserved, totally, and whatever you want deserved if they won the trophy, because they are, as I said, miles ahead the rest tactically and everything.
Okay. If you had to give us a surprise team, a team that when the tournament is over, we'll look back and say, wow, that team overperformed, what would that team be?
Overperforming? Yeah. That's quite tough, because I think everything is possible. For instance, even for instance, to see Congo winning the title as Algeria crushing from the first round. So I think I don't expect probably any teams to overperform, but probably some crushing very early, contrary to what people were thinking. I think we will have some teams which will crush earlier than expected, but overperforming. Yes, I would say Equatorial Guinea, but I'm very doubtful on their case.
Okay.
But yes, Equatorial Guinea, a quarter round of 8 place would be very good for them.
Okay. All right. Well, Oluwada, thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you coming on. Maybe what we can do is have you on in a couple of weeks once this tournament has kind of gone through the motions, and then we can go back and recap it all.
Yeah.
Thank you again for joining us, and have a good night.
Thank you to you for your invitation.
And that was Oluwada Lotfi. Sounded a little under the weather, so we're really, really appreciative that he did come out and give a talk. I'd like your thoughts on what he had to say this evening. Rob, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on his analysis of the tournament?
No, very knowledgeable. Definitely knows his stuff about African football. And as he said, I hope we expect a good tournament in the upcoming days.
How about you, Sir Bob? What did you think of what he had to say?
I thought he was really knowledgeable. I did disagree with him on one thing. I think Yaya Touré's ranking with his national team isn't as important as his overall play with what he's done with Manchester City. He's got to be close to the best African footballer ever, I think.
It's pretty close. I mean, but the thing is that he still has a lot of career to go. He still has some time ahead of him. I would say that right now you probably have to put that title onto Didier Drogba until at least we have a completion of a career for Yaya Touré. I think, will he get there? I don't see how he doesn't. He's certainly in a position to become the greatest African footballer of all time, but I think he's in a position that it's his to take that title as the greatest one ever. I don't want to definitely say that he's there at the moment. I mean, there's also George Weah. There's so many good ones that have been out there through the years that I don't know that I want to say that it is definitely Yaya Touré at the moment, but I'm not saying that it cannot become him. And
I didn't say it was him either. I just said he's one of, and I don't really think if Ivory Coast ever wins the World Cup or the African Cup of Nations, that's going to affect his ranking.
I would agree with you 100% there, no doubt about it. So just to close out the African Cup of Nations coverage for tonight, we do kick off the tournament this Saturday, the 17th. I don't have any start times on these matches, but we open this weekend with Equatorial Guinea versus Congo and Burkina Faso versus Gabon. Those are on Saturday, and I believe the majority of the coverage in the United States is going to be on beIN Sports, so that'll be it's definitely going to be something to watch. Sunday we'll have Zambia against DR Congo and Tunisia against Cape Verde, and then Monday we go to the group of death with Ghana, Senegal, and Algeria, South Africa. So when we come back next week, we'll be able to talk some of those results, and then on Tuesday,
those games on Saturday are at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Time, Joe.
Perfect, thank you. All right. So, and I'd imagine that's going to be a standard time usually in these tournaments.
Let me just check Sunday and see what they say. Sunday. Same 11 and 2.
Okay, and then Group D on Tuesday will be Ivory Coast, Guinea, and Mali versus Cameroon on match 8, and that'll close out the first round of matches for the African Cup of Nations. So again, we're really appreciative of Oluwada. It didn't sound like he was feeling well tonight, so I'm glad he was able to make it on and chat with us for a little while. So let's move on. I know we don't have our second guest, who is Alex McMahon, coming on for about another 40 minutes. So let's head over to our league coverage. Let's start hitting that stuff up, and then we can close out our league coverage and then get to Alex. Rob, I'm going to send it over to you to start us off with the results and basically our predicted match from this week from La Liga.
Yep. Just give me 1 second so I can get everything.
Before we close it out, let's go through prediction for the champion of this one. I'm going to go with Algeria for for the African Cup of Nations. I just think that right now they're playing the best football. It wouldn't shock me if Cameroon did win it because in qualification they were fantastic. If I remember right, I think they only gave up 1 goal in qualifying, so playing very, very well. But I'm going to stick with Algeria. If you guys want to put your name to a team, Rob, I'll go to you first. Who do you think's going to win?
I'm going to say the Ivory Coast.
Ivory Coast. And Sir Bob?
I'll go with Ghana.
Okay. So it's probably going to be somebody out of that group of death, seeing that, what did we say? Ghana, Algeria, Ivory Coast would be Group D, but they'll have to go through the group of death on the other side of the quarterfinals. So, great, it's going to be a great tournament. So, Rob, I
hope Ivory Coast doesn't make it out of the group.
Yeah, so that you get Yaya Toure back in Manchester City. Rather selfish. But yeah, sucks to be you. They're going to make it out of this group, I think. So, Rob, take us to Spain.
Yes, we will. Let's start off this weekend with the 0-0 draw Levante against Deportivo La Coruña. On Saturday, we had the leaders Real Madrid 3-0 victory over Espanyol. 1-1 draw between Malaga and Villarreal. I'm just going to go back to that Real Madrid match and say that this is the first match in, I believe it's the first match since the Club World Cup that Cristiano Ronaldo has failed to score. James Rodriguez, Gareth Bale, and Nacho all scoring for the Blancos.
Well, they did also have their 22-game winning streak broken, I believe, the week before. So.
Yep, exactly.
So I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. Celta Vigo, surprising 1-1 draw against Valencia, who defeated that Real Madrid side last week. So, quite surprising how Celta Vigo has been doing against top 5 clubs.
Right.
Eibar, 2-1 victory over Getafe, giving their second straight victory in La Liga. Sevilla on Sunday, 2-0 victory against Almeria. Elche, 2-1 against Athletic Bilbao. Granada, 1-1 against Real Sociedad. David Moyes' Real Sociedad. And the match of the week, I'm going to go back to you, Joe. What did you say your predictions were for this match between Barcelona and Atletico?
Let me go back to them. I think, and I forgot to put names.
I'm pretty sure I got it right on, didn't I? The game of the week?
Yeah, let me see. We had let's see. We had a 2-2 draw. I forget who picked that one.
I think it was me.
Yeah, you had 2-2. Sir Bob had 2-1.
Okay.
And I had 3-2 Atletico to be contrarian with a Griezmann goal.
Yep.
And what was the score?
Neither of us were right. Barcelona 3-1 victory against Atletico Madrid.
Yep. Sir Bob was the closest as he had a Barca victory.
Yep. Victory for Barcelona gives them their first win.
It was 2-1 because Messi's goal shouldn't have counted. Handball.
It was actually I think it was a handball from Leo Messi, and the ball gave it to Luis Suarez, if I'm not mistaken, for the second goal.
I just want to let you guys know.
That's what happened.
Just a couple little tidbits I want to add. Victor Scamorza says he thinks DR Congo could surprise in the African Cup of Nations. And Viva Eibar and typical Man City for Sir Bob. So, there you go.
For this 3-1 victory, Barcelona went on to win 3-1 courtesy of goals from each player from the front three, Neymar, Luis Suarez, and Leo Messi. And the lone goal for Atletico Madrid was from Mario Mandzukic.
Okay.
And the match of today, Cordoba, surprisingly, 1-0 victory against Rayo Vallecano, taking them out of the relegation zone for the first time this season.
Wow.
And Torres played, right?
I'm sorry?
Torres played?
Torres
yes, he did. 20 minutes.
Oh, no, he did come out. He came off the bench. That's right.
Yes, he did. As we look at the tables, Real Madrid is first with 42 points. In second, Barcelona with 41 points. In third, Atletico Madrid with 38 points. In fourth, Sevilla with 36 points. In fifth, Valencia with 35 points. In sixth, Villarreal with 32 points. And Eibar in eighth with 26 points. Only 6 points of a European spot. So basically, another 2 wins for Eibar could see them in a Europa League spot.
That's right. All right, so let's move on. Let's head over to. Oh no, we can't move on. You have to give us a.
Oh yeah, of course. I think the match of the week, I'm going to pick. Let's see here. You know what? I'm gonna stay in. I'm gonna stay here and pick Sevilla against Malaga. Sevilla is fourth with 36 points, with Malaga in seventh with 31 points. So definitely a win for Malaga could see them in the European spots.
All right. You want to give us a score?
As much as Malaga definitely needs this win, I think it's going to be all Sevilla. 2-1.
2-1. Okay.
2-1.
All right. So we have you on the books for that. Let's go over to France. And some interesting stuff I want to talk about when we hit France here. So let's get through the statistical information on the matches that were played earlier this week. Starting on Wednesday the 7th, we had Lille with a 1-0 victory over Evian. On Friday, we had Montpellier 2-1 over Marseille. That was our match of the week. Moving into Saturday, big upset. Bastia 4-2 victory at home over Paris Saint-Germain. Evian 1-1 draw with Rennes. Guingamp 2-0 over Lens. Lille 1-0 over Caen. Nice 3-1 over Lorient. Reims at home losing 2-1 to Saint-Etienne. On Sunday, Lyon 3-0 over Toulouse. Nantes 0-0 draw with Metz, and Monaco closing out a 0-0 draw with Bordeaux. So our match of the week was Montpellier versus Marseille. I had this one pegged for a 3-0 Marseille victory. I really butchered this one. This is a Montpellier victory, 2-1 in this one. Goals in this match, Beauregard in the 38th minute for Montpellier, Lasne in the 62nd minute, and Omrani in the 68th to draw to 2-1, but that wasn't enough. Shots in this one were even 12-12, with Marseille holding the possession at 56% over 43% possession for Montpellier. Going back to the tables now on this league, we're in week 20, so we're well past the halfway point here. We have Lyon now leading the way based on their victory and the Marseille loss on 42 points. Marseille in second on 41. Saint-Etienne in third place on 39. Paris Saint-Germain on 38 points. We have 4 teams separated by 4 points at the top of this league, which is amazing. Monaco in fifth on 33 points. Bordeaux in sixth on 32. Nantes in seventh place on 31 points. We have Montpellier and Rennes tied on 29 points each. Reims rounding out the top 10 on 28 points. Popping up the bottom of the table, we have Caen in last place, 20th, with 15 points. Lens on 19 points. Evian on 20 points, last of the relegation teams. Just outside on goal differential alone, Metz and Lorient also on 20 points. So we have 4 teams there fighting to stay out of... I'm sorry, we have 4 teams within 1 point trying to stay out of 2 positions there. 15th place, we have Toulouse and Bastia on 21 points each. Then we have Guingamp and Nice on 25 each. And rounding out the bottom half of the table, Lille on 27 points. So moving forward into this weekend's matches, I hadn't given it a good look over yet, but I think this Marseille team does bear some watching. But for me, it's actually tough to say because we don't have much of a top and we have two teams that are closely contested. I would say the match of the week is probably going to be Monaco-Nantes. Monaco in 5th place on 33 points.
AS Monaco versus Nantes.
Yeah, and
Nantes too.
And Nantes
5th
is in
versus
7th. Yeah, and Nantes on 7th place on 31 points. Looks like, though, Monaco's on the better run of form. They're winners of 4 of their last 6 and unbeaten in their last 5 matches, where Nantes is just coming off of a 3-loss stretch in their last 6 matches. For me, it's hard for me to pick against Alejandro Bedoya. I know this match is in Monaco. I'm going to take Monaco in this one. I'll take them in a 2-1 victory. I hate to do it. Let's really go out on the limb and say the American scores a goal in this one. So we'll go Monaco 2, Nantes 1, and with Alejandro Bedoya netting the lone goal for Nantes. That's going to do it for Ligue 1. We can move over to Germany. Germany is still closed for business until the end of until the end of the month, and really nothing going on here that I can see. Sweeping through the news. Obviously, the big news, which we could talk about in Italy, of Xherdan Shaqiri moving on to Inter during the week, as opposed to Liverpool, which it looked like Liverpool had almost picked him up, but he did move on to Internazionale instead. So I that's probably the biggest news right now coming out of Germany. Other than that, sweeping through their headlines, we should probably give a moment to talk about the death of Junior Malanda, who was a Wolfsburg player who died, I believe, in a car accident earlier in the week.
Yep.
He's just 20-year-old Belgian who was a passenger in the car that crashed on a motorway in North Rhine-Westphalia, according to Bild newspaper and the SID agency. So tragically, losing an important part of their team. He played a total of 17 league games for Wolfsburg this week, 10 this season, and he'd scored 2 goals so far this season for Wolfsburg. A side that certainly is going to be challenging at the top of the Bundesliga table from here on out. So it's definitely sad to hear of the death of a young person such as Junior Malanda. Ben, I'm sorry, not Ben, as Ben's not out tonight. Rob, did you have anything that you wanted to add to any of this? Especially
no, obviously it's a really sad story to report. For such a young player, 21 years of age is not exactly old, right, if you ask me. So, yeah, for someone to be dead at that age and in such a horrible way, a car accident, it's just incredible. This guy could have had a huge future for his club and even for his national team in Belgium.
Sure. He started 4 matches for Wolfsburg and then came off the bench for another 6. So, a sad story. Anything you wanted to add to that, Sir Bob?
Not really. Just obviously thoughts and condolences.
Yes, to the families.
Yep.
And certainly to his fans. So, and let's move on. Let's get on to something a little bit more enlightening. Let's go to Serie A, gentlemen. Actually, no. Yep, we did.
That's hardly more enlightening.
It certainly is. Well, actually, you know what? We didn't really look at much more. Nothing really coming over the transfer window news, at least for this. Oh, I did want to bring up one thing for Ligue 1 before we moved on. For some reason, I don't have my notes here on this, but at the beginning of the season, we were talking about Pierre-Andre Gignac, who was the leading scorer for Marseille. Really sparked them to the top of the Ligue 1 standings with Marseille. I believe he had scored 10 goals in his first 10 matches. I'm just looking for my notes that I had written on this, and for some reason I seem to have lost them. And then ever since in the next 10 matches, he had scored, I believe it was 2 goals, and really leading to Marseille's overall performance, because we've seen them really take a drop in their overall play over, I'd say, the last 4 to 6 weeks. Now, on the flip side of that, we have Lyon's star striker, Alexander Lacazette, who is currently leading the way in goal scoring for Ligue 1. He's currently on 19 goals, and this is a player who I believe has scored 9 goals in his first 10 matches and has now scored 10 goals in his last 10 matches. Been very consistent overall. Looking at his performances over the year, he actually is on a streak right now, gentlemen. This is amazing. In his last 4 matches, which were December 7th against Evian, December 12th against Lyon, December 21st against Bordeaux, and then this past weekend against Toulouse, he scored 2 goals in each of those 4 matches, and those are his last 4 matches. Absolutely amazing run of form. I'm surprised we're not talking about Lacazette moving on to another side, like one of the big sides, like a Manchester United, who could certainly use quality goal scoring like that, or even Real Madrid, who everyone seems to wants to send there for €100 million. This is a guy, in Lacazette, who is, if I remember correctly, he's a pretty young guy, plays for the French national team. I'm just looking up his information now. I
think there's a couple rumors that he's Manchester City's involved with something with him.
Well, we're going to talk about City and one of their acquisitions that's possibly coming up by the end of the week. I would imagine in the corner.
No, Lacazette, I mean.
Oh, no, I know, but would City need to pick up Lacazette when they're going to make another acquisition in the league?
Well, they need depth.
That's true. Lacazette, by the way, 23 years old, gentlemen. So absolutely going crazy in France right now.
Clearly a bargain, whatever big club gets him.
Yeah, and he's always been a decent performer, but I think he's really, really coming into his own here now, and it's shown as if you look at the French standings, like we'd said, Lyon has surged all the way to the top. They've leapfrogged PSG, they've leapfrogged Marseille, Saint Etienne, and actually PSG, amazing, have won 5 of their last 6 matches, and they are still 3 points behind Lyon, moving forward with 18 matches to play in the league. So. You definitely got to pat Lacazette on the back on this one because he's certainly doing his part to move Lyon, surging them right to the top of the league. So let's move on. Let's head over to Italy, and let me just call up the scores here. Last week we had reported it on last week's show as it had finished before we came on the air, but Lazio 3-0 over Sampdoria. On Tuesday, as we remember, guys, we basically played 2 weeks in one on this one. On Tuesday, Udinese losing at home 1-0 to Roma. AC Milan losing at home 2-1 to Sassuolo. Palermo 5-0 over Cagliari. Parma 1-0 over Fiorentina. Really getting them off the slide because they've been playing horribly as of late. Chievo 0-0 draw with Torino. Empoli 0-0 draw with Verona. Genoa 2-2 draw with Atalanta. Napoli 4-1 over Cesena. Juventus 1-1 draw with Inter in that clash of the Titans. On Saturday, we had Sassuolo draw Udinese 1-1 and Torino and AC Milan draw 1-1. On Sunday, Inter 3-1 over Genoa. Roma and Lazio played to a 2-2 draw on 2 goals and a selfie from Francesco Totti. Sampdoria 1-0 over Empoli. Atalanta 1-1 draw with Chievo. Cagliari 2-1 over Cesena. Fiorentina in a barn burner 4-3 over Palermo, gentlemen. 7 goals in that one. Verona 3-1 over Parma, and in the match of the week, the match that we had highlighted, the final score, Juventus 3-1 over Napoli. Sir Bob, you were saying that you were getting that other match right. I got this match right. I had this one 2-1, and it was 2-1 until Arturo Vidal scores in the 94th minute to add that goal and ruin my prediction. But I'll dip into the statistical information on this particular match. Let's see here if we can get the match report up here in a second. Let's see. As my link, I created the plan for the show before the match was completed, so I had misinformation there to start. But again, 3-1 in this one for Juventus. With goals from Paul Pogba, who arguably scored the goal of the week in the 29th minute on a beautiful volley. Martin Cáceres in the 69th minute. Arturo Vidal in the 93rd minute. And Britos in the 64th minute for Napoli, adding 1 goal to try and pull them a little closer. Shots on this one were 10-8 in favor of Napoli. And Juventus just barely edging out the possession, 51-49 in time of possession. So with this result, Juventus actually increases their lead at the top of the Serie A standings. We have Juventus on 43 points, Roma on 40 points. This is going to be, gentlemen, a 2-team race, just as we had predicted all season long. Lazio in 3rd place on 31 points. Napoli and Sampdoria tied on 4th place on 30 points each. Fiorentina and Genoa tied on 27 points. Then in 8th place, we have AC Milan on 26, Inter on 25, and Palermo on 25 points, rounding out the top 10. Propping up the bottom of the table, we have Parma, bottom of the table, 9 points. Cesena on 9 points as well. Cagliari on 15 points. Atalanta on 17 points. Chievo and Empoli tied for 15th on 18 points each. Torino on 19 points. Verona on 21 points. Udinese on 23 points. And rounding out the top of the bottom 10, Sassuolo on 24 points. Let's call up the matches of the week this week and see if we can give you something decent to watch. I would say just looking
Lazio, Napoli.
I think it would definitely got to be the Lazio-Napoli matchup there. That match is in Rome. Lazio on 31 points, Napoli on 30 points, third and fourth place respectively. Napoli coming off the home loss to Juventus. Lazio giving away points, in my opinion, because it was a tale of two matches for that Lazio-Roma match, the Derby della Capitale. And Lazio really dominated the first half of that match, only to give it away in the second half. I'm gonna, but that's a Roma side that, in theory, is playing at home as well, as they're both playing in the city of Rome. I'm gonna take Napoli in this one, gentlemen. Even though we have, I'm sorry, no. Let me rephrase that. Sorry, we're gonna take Lazio in this one.
Why does it start so early?
This is because they're 6 hours ahead.
That's true.
That's exactly why. So this is a noontime start in Italy, is what it comes down to. But and the Inter match, I don't know if you noticed, but the Inter match this week was also on Sunday. Was a 6:30
like 6:30 a.m. or something.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna take Lazio in this one. I'll take them 2-1 to win at home over a very, very tough Napoli side. So that'll wrap it up for the Serie A. Sir Bob, I know this is Ben's spot. I didn't know if you wanted to do the matches from the EPL.
I could give you the scores if you like.
That would be fantastic.
We could talk about it.
Yeah.
All right, and on the early match on Saturday, it was Liverpool 1, Sunderland 0. In the second or the afternoon matches, it was Burnley beating Queen's Park 2-1, and I believe Queen's Park is the only team in all of the English football to yet get a point on the road.
That's correct.
Chelsea beat Newcastle 2-0. And in a disappointing result, after having a lead 1-0, Everton was able to come back and draw with Manchester City at Goodison Park 1-1. Leicester beat Aston Villa 1-0 in a bit of a surprising result. I'm thinking Aston Villa might go down this season.
Really?
Anyone else? Yeah, no one else.
No. I'm going to hold out hope for Brad Guzan. I'm always going to do that. So
Yeah, of course.
yeah. So I'm going to say no, but
All right.
it certainly could happen.
Swansea was able to draw with West Ham 1-1. I don't know if anyone's seen Carroll's goal, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think I saw it.
With his stutter step there,
Yep.
That was a pretty nice goal. And then
That's
he flat-footed it right into the top corner. It was a beautiful goal. West Brom was able to beat Hull City 1-0. Crystal Palace in a bit of an upset 2-1 over Tottenham. And that was the final game on Saturday. And then on Sunday we had two more games. One of them was an outstanding result. Just let me get there. Arsenal beat Stoke City 3-0, which was probably expected at the Emirates. But in a bit of surprise, Manchester United lost to Spurs at home, or Southampton, at home 1-0, and Manchester United did not register a shot on goal.
That's correct.
And I'm sure you're very disappointed in that, right?
Yeah, I'm upset. I think they better go and sign every forward available.
Be careful. Be careful. They have the money to do it.
Exactly. And they're the only clubs that can afford Lionel Messi.
Yeah, I know that Joe disagreed with me on number. I don't think anyone can afford Lionel Messi given the numbers I've heard.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think anybody can afford him either. It's
a minimum of £500 million when everything was said and done.
That's an absurd amount of money.
Yeah, no one's going to do that. He's not leaving Barcelona.
To think how much this Messi would have been if he didn't grow up in Barcelona in the academy since he was a kid. Just imagine.
But 150 million of that 500 million is just a thing that Barcelona has written in that they get regardless.
Exactly.
Right. So it's not all transfer fees. There's a lot of other fees that come with Messi that don't come with other footballers.
Agreed. You have
oh, sorry?
No, I'm just saying, do you have a match of the week?
I was looking forward to this, or towards this weekend's games. Let me have a quick look at Sunday's matches.
So I have one.
Oh, obviously it's Manchester City and Arsenal for me. which is 11 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday, and it's going to be at home for Manchester City. I'm going to take Manchester City 3-1.
I'm going to say 2-1 Manchester City.
I'm sorry, who was that again? City and who?
Arsenal.
City. Oh wow. Where are they playing it again? Are they playing it at the Etihad? Or are they?
Yep.
The Etihad, yeah.
3-1 City.
I say 2-1.
All right, and just quickly on Premier League, I have the ESPN Team of the Weekend. If you'd want to hear that.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, the goaltender was Peter Cech, making a return for the injured Thibaut Courtois, and he did play really good from what I've seen. Yeah. I didn't watch the whole game, but he made a couple of big saves. They've used a 3-4-3 formation to pick their team of the week. I guess the right back or right center back in this formation was Scott Dan. And then they had Koscielny as the center back. And then the left center back was Fonte from Southampton.
Yep. I just want to talk about him real quick.
All right.
Because Fonte, to me, is, he's one of the underrated center backs in the EPL or in world football, in my opinion. I don't think we talk enough about him, but he's such a solid central defender. I really don't think we talk enough about him, and he's really the key to Southampton's ability to play solid defense. They're one of the better defensive sides in the league.
Yep.
And it certainly was obvious in the fact that they hold Manchester United to no shots on goal. But I think Font is a big part of that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Joe. Do you think Liverpool might be thinking they bought the wrong center back this summer?
I'm sure they're thinking that.
Joe, it's funny you say that. Southampton are indeed the only club to have conceded less goals in the league. 15 goals against. Yeah,
I mean, there's defensively, like I said, they're very, very underrated. They're very, very underappreciated, in my opinion. I think they're just such a solid defensive side that no one talks enough about their ability to play defense. Yeah, the next closest team is the proverbial park the bus side in Chelsea on 19 goals, 19 goals against, and Southampton's 4 goals better than that. So it's the problem with Southampton is they can't score them in bunches like Chelsea or Man City can. As evidence, they've scored 10 less goals than Man City and 11 less than Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
So that obviously that'll come back to bite them. Even Arsenal scored more goals than them. United's on 34 goals. So, but they're such a solid defensive side. I think people need to give them more credit for their ability to do that.
Absolutely. And hopefully they've been a surprising Sorry, I just want to mention.
Yeah. Sorry, Rob.
I know, just mentioning that Southampton have been a surprising side all season long. And so maybe if so, really hope they can make it to a Europa League spot.
That they were last year, if you guys remember last season, they were running pretty close to that Europa position.
Yep.
And then just kind of stumbled at the end, but they seem to be playing better football this year than last. They really stumbled at this point, and here they are holding pretty steady in in third place. They've got 5 points on Tottenham Hotspur on 34 points. They're the first team outside the promotional positions for the European spots. So.
Yep.
It'd be interesting to see. It'd be interesting to see if they can manage to maintain that position. I obviously, the three of us think that the Man City Chelsea 2-team race for the league title is certainly in full effect. I don't think any of the other teams behind them have enough to catch them. However, I think if you had to pick one side that would be able to do it, it would probably be United.
Yeah.
Because there's so much talent on that team. I think Arsenal just for some reason just doesn't have enough to do it. Although that is certainly the Alexis Sanchez show over there at Arsenal, don't you boys think?
Yeah, but I think I want to mention, I think considering Arsene Wenger has been overplaying Alexis Sanchez, it's only going to be a matter of time before injury, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, and that's actually bad news for Chile as they're hosting the Copa America in the summer.
Exactly.
And they're certainly going to want a top form Alexis Sanchez there, just as much as they're going to want a top form Arturo Vidal in that mix.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they'll get that. I think they'll get that no matter what. So, it's it's just a matter of, like you said, keeping Alexis Sanchez healthy, so that they don't have any issues, moving into that particular tournament. I would say.
Well, I think that. Sorry, I just wanted to mention. I think that goes for a lot of Premier League clubs that have South American players, given that there's no breaks in the Premier League,
right?
Like Christmas, like they have in Germany or in France, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be really interesting to see who can keep on form and be consistent without injury.
Yep. No, that's true. I mean, and we ran into that with the World Cup. If you remember, it was right around that February-March slot when we saw the Christian Benteke's and the Kevin Strootmans and the Giuseppe Rossis of the world go down with injury and weren't able to make the tournament. So obviously this is a smaller tournament, but I mean we're even seeing it now with the African Cup of Nations with Senegal, with those two players from Senegal currently on injury, with the big mystery surrounding it. So. It's a challenge. I mean, let me ask you this. It just leads to another simple question. Do you think these guys play too much? Do you think these players play too many matches between club and country? Do you think some of these seasons are too long?
I personally think so. What do you think, Sir Bob?
Yes, that's why I'm tired of these international tournaments. They're every other week.
Well, I would say that they're actually playing too much club competition.
Well, there's no such thing considering that's who pays them.
No. I mean, I get that part of it, but when you think about it, let's look at Real Madrid, who's currently on my TV screen. They're playing in the Copa del Rey. Okay, that's club competition on the Spanish level.
But they're a victim of their own success. That's not every team.
True, but these teams like Barca, Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, Juventus, Paris Saint-Germain, Manchester City, Chelsea, they're all going to have. They're not made of all English players or all Spanish players or all Italian players. They have such a mix of international players, but they're taking the mix of the best international players. So these guys are naturally going to, they are a victim of their own success, but it's an international challenge for them to all be able to stay healthy to play in these other competitions. Now, granted, the Copa America, the African Cup of Nations, the Asian Cup, even if you want to talk about the Euro, these are all quote unquote secondary tournaments to the World Cup.
But the Euro's every 4 years, isn't the ANC every 2 years?
It is.
And the Copa America's every 4 years as well.
Right, except for the special one that they're holding next year. In the United States, but
why did they have to hold the African Cup of Nations every 2 years?
Because I think since it was on a World Cup here, it felt that it would interfere how African nations would do in the following summer.
Right.
Oh.
So,
okay, so just let me round out this team quickly before we get on to our next guest. Then team of the week.
Sure.
Okay, so it was Markovic. Who scored I think it was his first goal, perhaps, but it was a really nice goal.
Yep, it was.
He looks like he's rounding into a good Premier League player for Liverpool. Someone we spoke about earlier was Schneiderlin, who made the team in central defense this week. Fernandinho was the other central defense, and someone you guys both were just talking highly of, Sanchez, was the left midfielder this week.
All right.
And the three forwards quickly were Oscar, Costa, and Andy Carroll. And the manager of the week, Ronald Koeman.
Rightly deserved.
And deserves it. Yeah, I was going to say definitely deserves that title.
I'm just a bit surprised of seeing that Dusan Tadic is not on that team.
No, it's true.
The one that scored the goal against Manchester United.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, he should have definitely, and he scored a great goal. So
of course,
it kind of stinks. So,
what's the war between Koeman and Van Gaal?
Yeah. Joe, do you know about this? Because
no, this one I don't.
I think this happened while they were when they were both managers at in Holland. I don't know what exactly happened, but I think it's due to a confrontation, giving that Van Gaal Koeman wanted Van Gaal out of Ajax, and it happened.
Okay.
All right.
So, gentlemen, while we're chatting here, our next guest is actually ready to come on a few minutes early. If you don't mind me adding him.
Yeah, that's fine.
And he's Alex McMahon. I'll give you a quick little rundown on him. He is the editor for Houndsport. He's one of the editors for Houndsport. They've been very, very good to us. Over the past, I'd say at least 6 months, where they've had a bunch of a bunch of writers on our show and retweeted our show for others to listen to. So we're really appreciative. But I'm excited about this. And Alex and I, we've been kind of going back and forth as to what we wanted to talk about. And then we decided that with the news that happened today, with all the pomp and circumstance with the Balon D'Or, this would be a great thing to kind of talk about, between the World 11 team, the Balon D'Or, the Goal of the Year, the Puskas Award, Coach of the Year. So I thought that would be a fantastic, person to talk about these things and really dig into them a little deeper. So we'll certainly add him on, because joining us now from Houndsport is Alex McMahon. Alex, it's Joe Usello from Low Limit Football. How are you tonight?
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me on. I'm good. How are you?
Good. We're really, really glad to have you on. And I was just telling the guys that how we went back and forth on what we were going to talk about tonight, and we were going to do some transfer window stuff and that sort of thing. But with the Balon D'Or ceremonies that happened today, it just seemed like the right fit to really kind of rehash that. Especially, I think we're going to chat a lot about the World 11 that they had elected and presented to us today, because I think there were some serious either omissions or mistakes on the World 11 that I'm sure we'll get into. But I'd like your thoughts. Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo winning, I believe it's his third Balon D'Or in a row this afternoon. I'd like your thoughts on that, and basically the three finalists, if we have the right person to win the award.
I think Ronaldo overall, he probably deserves the award. I don't think that Manuel Neuer deserves it purely because it's a World Cup year. Ronaldo, I can't remember how many goals he scored. 661 in all competitions, I think, including international.
Yeah, 61.
Yeah. So that's pretty staggering to be at that consistent basis that high for so many years as well. He really does deserve it after being in Messi's shadow for quite a few years as well. So.
Certainly. I'm gonna send it over to. I'm not sure which one of our hosts is first here. I'm gonna actually give it over to Sir Bob. I usually go to Rob first, and Rob, I see you jumped in there, but I always go to Rob first. So I'm gonna go to Sir Bob first. So go ahead with the first question for Alex. Unless we've lost him, then you know what?
Hi, Alex. How you doing?
There we go.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
Good, thanks. I see you were born in Manchester, so the first question I was going to ask you, but I think reading some of your articles, I already have the answer. City or United, but I think you're Manchester's other team, United, right?
Yeah, that's the one. I'm the Reds.
So my noisy neighbor.
That's right.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you something about Manchester United here. We're 21 games into his reign now, following a record spending of £152 million. And Manchester United have the same amount of points at this stage of the season exactly as they did under David Moyes. But Van Gaal seems to be a lot less scrutinized. Yesterday at home, they had 0 shots on goal. So why is he less scrutinized? Does he just talk a better game than David Moyes, or is there something more to it?
That's an excellent question. It's one that I've actually been considering myself, because yesterday, if you watched the game, there was very little game plan. I think Van Gaal actually got his strategy a bit wrong yesterday. Some of the substitutions were a bit questionable. And I know Van Persie was injured, but 1-0 down, I know Angel Di Maria wasn't performing particularly well. But you bring on Marouane Fellaini instead of another striker when you're chasing the game and you haven't had a shot on target. I didn't understand that.
Right. So what is the difference then? It's just he talks a better game.
Possibly. I think, to be fair to United fans, at the start of the Moyes era, most fans were supporting him a little bit. It took a couple of the bad results before people turned. And, at the moment, we're sitting in 4th spot. Okay, it was a bad result of the weekend. But, I think there's a pretty good improvement in terms of the actual football that we're playing. It's nothing like City and Chelsea, but you know, it's a lot better than the dinosaur tactics from last year when we played Fulham with Moyes. About 70 crosses in the box. It was ridiculous. Like at least now the football we're playing, we're getting it on the ground a bit more. People like Di Maria coming back, Luke Shaw will have them running at the back, running at defenders, because people who have pace, they'll scare defenders. They'll make them dive in and make challenges. I don't think United have had a penalty this season yet.
Oh, I'm not sure. That's an interesting.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking because I can't remember the last time that we got past Christmas and United hadn't had a penalty, because we've always had wingers running at defenders and committing them.
So what? So are you in agreement with most people that United's biggest need in this transfer window, or definitely next summer, is defenders?
Yeah, I'd say we've got to get a centre back, because it's all right playing three at the back if you have one commanding central defender and the two, you know, who like to push up a bit either side of him. But we have Chris Smalling, Phil Jones. I mean, Marcus Rojo looked good before his injury, but I'm still not sure he's the kind of caliber player that Manchester United should be having.
So who? Oh, sorry.
I was going to possibly suggest we could do with going for somebody like Mats Hummels. I mean, I know, you know, he's the one who keeps getting linked, but he's arguably the best central defender in the world. And you know, if you want to make it back to the big time and you have the money to invest, you've got to do it.
How about Vincent Kompany?
Yeah, I would have him.
In your dreams.
I knew that would upset somebody. Sorry, I had to do it.
I just wanted to ask you one more thing, Alex. Speaking of yesterday's lineup, one of the notables who wasn't on the bench or on the field was Falcao. What are you thinking about his future at Manchester United?
Well, he has had a bit of a tough start, hasn't he? I was a bit suspect when we signed him, because obviously coming off the ligament injury, you know, you can never be too sure if he's going to be what he was beforehand. But I think he's shown glimpses. But glimpses, is it enough? I'm a bit waiting on it at the moment, to be honest. I want to give him maybe another month, 2 months before we try and get him, maybe on a longer deal.
Yeah, because he has shown a lot of glimpses, but I was thinking it'd be nice to be a fan in about the 11th row where his balls are finishing up right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a couple of goals, but yeah, I mean, Van Persie hasn't been much better, to be fair.
Okay, thanks a lot, Alex. I'm going to send you over to Roberto. He's got a couple of questions for you, too.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, hi, Alex. Obviously, I'm going to switch back to the FIFA Balon D'Or ceremony that happened today. Obviously, we had the Team of the Year with some surprising inclusions and exclusions. What do you think is the most? What do you think was the most surprising inclusion or exclusion from the team? And if so, who do you believe should replace those players that don't deserve to be on that team?
Yeah, there's quite a few actually in there that I probably would change. I'm just looking now. I can't understand why David Luiz is in the side. You know, you lose 7-1 to Germany at a home World Cup. You get sold by your club. Obviously, I know Chelsea got a lot of money for him, but it shows that Mourinho didn't really, you know, put that much trust in him. Yeah, I think probably David Luiz, and I'd replace him with Hummels. Even though Dortmund haven't had such a great season this year, they were pretty good up until the end of May, and then the World Cup, obviously Hummels was a focal point of that Germany defence. So, yeah, I'd replace Hummels for Luiz, definitely.
And anyone in the midfield to mention?
Yeah, as a United fan, I'm probably a little biased towards Di Maria, but I'm not quite sure he should make it, or Iniesta for that reason. Yeah, Iniesta's been injured quite a bit since the new season started, but I'm struggling to think of who I would possibly play. Especially because Spain weren't great in the World Cup either, so I really don't know how he got in.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, sure.
If what you do is on this team, because Arjen Robben, they have him listed as a forward, but he's easily a wing midfielder. You can easily switch him back and forth between the two positions. I would take Andres Iniesta off this team. I would move Arjen Robben to the midfield classification instead, and I would put Sergio Aguero up at the forward line instead. What are your thoughts of that?
Yeah, that's not a bad suggestion. I was just thinking when you were going to put Robben back, you might have put Diego Costa up front. Actually,
that's another option too. One of the guys in our I've got a little Skype chat going on with a couple of listeners, and one of them is suggesting Eden Hazard.
Yeah, I was speaking to a few of the guys at Houndsports today about our Premier League XIs so far, and I had Eden Hazard, Costa,
You know, and there's one more name that I'm surprised, and Rob, I know I've kind of cut into your question a little bit, but
that's fine.
There's one more name that no one seems to mention, and it's coming to mind now because he's on my screen, but I thought about him before. Luis Suarez. I mean, I know everybody hates him for what he did at the World Cup, and he was suspended for all that time, but you've got to remember, this is a man coming off of 30-plus goals in the Premier League last year. That was still 2014. I can't wrap my head around the fact that we're not talking about him on this particular side.
And he definitely also has the European Golden Shoe, for that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, Luis Suarez would also be a worthy. I think he was in the second string, like they do a reserve XI. I think he was in that. Yeah. So, but you know, with Messi and Ronaldo, them two are obviously first up on the team sheet. And if you want to play three up front, you could accommodate Suarez or Costa or Aguero or Hazard. But I'm a fan of the traditional 4-4-2 with two wingers. Okay. I just think that would work better, but obviously FIFA went 4-3-3.
So,
I just have one more follow up, then I'll pass it over to Joe.
Yeah.
What do you feel is the danger of Adam Januzaj, a player that hasn't been speaking a lot or been known so much in Manchester currently, given his his breakout season last season, and now he is failing to even make one of the 18 players in Louis van Gaal's squad. What do you think is happening to this player that was so widely regarded as a young talent, a young promise?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's not doing the correct things in training, or Van Gaal. I have a feeling that they're going to loan Adnan Januzaj out in January till the end of the season, because I think Van Gaal knows he's talented and he wants him to have game time. But then again, who's he going to replace in the United attack? He's not going to get in over Van Persie, Rooney, or Falcao, and he's not going to get in over Di Maria. And if you try and take out a Carrick or a Blin, that team's going to become too attacking again, and the balance goes. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I know Januzaj got quite a lot of game time in the reserves at the start of the year when he wasn't getting game time, but I haven't really been keeping up with the United under 21s or reserve side since. So whether or not he'll just play a focal part in that, or we will loan him out, I'm not sure. But I think he definitely needs game time, because the talent that boy possesses is incredible. I think he could be 5 years from now, he could be among the world's best.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Thank you. I'm gonna pass it over to Joe for any questions.
Yeah. Alex, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna stay with today's festivities, and I'm gonna actually go to the Coach of the Year voting. Jurgi Low winning the World Cup with the German side took 36% of the vote, followed by Carlo Ancelotti in second place on 22%, Diego Simeone on 19%, Pep Guardiola fourth with 8% of the vote, and Jose Mourinho rounding out the top five with 6% of the vote. My first question to you is did the voters get this right? Jurgi Low should have won the World Coach of the Year, or do you see somebody else on this list that should have won it instead?
Yeah, I don't think Jurgen Low was the right choice. Not for me. I mean, what Germany did was fantastic, but the German national side was streets ahead. I believe streets ahead of everyone else. I know Argentina, gave them a good game, fine, but in the knockout stages and the group stage, Argentina didn't look great. Germany looked solid throughout. That German side, that this is its time. This is its time. It's going to be dominating European and world football for a few years now, I think, just like Spain did. But what Simeone did with Atletico Madrid was phenomenal. Like, I believe Simeone should have won it. I think, actually, if Simeone had managed to get the Champions League, he might have won this.
I think I agree with you. Rob and I talked about this earlier today, and we both thought that Diego Simeone should have won this award. Now, granted, we just talked about 2 seconds ago about Diego Costa being omitted from that World 11, and he did have the benefit of having Diego Costa, but Diego's not enough. I agree. Jurgen Low has a team that is stacked top to bottom, just like the Spanish side had been for the past 8 years. This is a team that you could easily see dominating for the next 4 to 6 years with the quality on the side, on the national side. For me, Diego Simeone would have been a better choice. I think also another coach that would have been a decent choice, although it would have been controversial because he really didn't win anything this year, is what Louis van Gaal did with the Netherlands before he went over to Manchester United. I don't think anybody was really banking on the Dutch side to go far in this tournament this year for the World Cup, and he turned them around into a team that was, just destroyed the defending champions. What are your thoughts on Van Gaal? He ended up 6th on this voting. I think he should have been a little higher.
Yeah, possibly, but I look at the people who came in the top 5, and you've got Lowe won the World Cup, Ancelotti won everything bar the league in Spain. Simeone, won the league, gave Real Madrid a great game in the Champions League final, was minutes away from winning that as well. Right. Bayern Munich, Pep Guardiola, Bayern Munich at the moment are dominating the German league as they have been doing, but even more so. That possibly could be related to Dortmund's downfall, but Mourinho though. Mourinho possibly, Van Gaal possibly could get in over Mourinho. What Van Gaal did in the World Cup, such as, obviously the Tim Krul substitution, it showed that the guy has guts, and, the top managers make the big calls, and sometimes they go for you, sometimes they don't, but they did for him then, and I think, you might be right there, he might have deserved to scrape into that top 5. Right.
And Jurgen Klinsmann 9th on this list, ahead of Manuel Pellegrini, who won the EPL. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm not surprised, because what Klinsmann did with the USA was pretty good. The USA weren't probably not expected to progress from the group with Germany and Portugal. So what he did with them was pretty special, and I think he definitely played on the team spirit side of things. I think he got them really united, and I know Pellegrini obviously won the title, but I think that was a little bit because Liverpool slipped up a little bit,
Oh, sure.
So yeah, I'm not saying that Pellegrini doesn't deserve it, because at the end of the day, they won the league over 38 matches. They didn't win the league because Gerrard slipped. But yeah, Klinsmann's performance was exceptional. I'd say he's definitely deserving of that 9th spot.
Sure. All right, let me send you over to Rob. I know Rob has another question waiting in the wings. Go ahead, Rob.
Yes, hi, Alex. I just have a few more questions. Obviously, Joe, you did mention my next question. It was on the United States national team. What do you think surprised you or impressed you the most of this national team so far in the World Cup? And what do you believe is the future for the national team leading up to qualification in Russia, and obviously having all these players playing abroad, especially in England?
Yeah, I'm not massive on the United States national team, but what I did see in the World Cup was, they're a good, solid group of lads. They've got a lot of pace. That's the one thing that I can remember was the USA were quick on the counter.
Yep.
And I'm not. Does Clint Dempsey still play for you guys? Or
Yes, he does.
Yeah. So you've got people like Dempsey and Tim Howard and stuff, and Dujan, and they've got a lot of experience in that side. And with leaders in the dressing room, that can help you go a long way.
Okay. And I'm gonna go gonna go over the continent and mention about England. What are your expectations for this England team having the Euro 2016 qualification? What do you see going forward in that? And what do you believe are the specific young stars that will be in the attention of many people up in the world?
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few good English youngsters coming through. People like Ross Barkley of Everton, Raheem Sterling. Obviously, he made a mark on the World Cup. He was arguably one of England's better players. Yeah, so we've got a few coming through. I think that I never like to predict how England are going to do because I always get disappointed. But the kind of teams that we're going up against now, we're dealing with them fairly comfortably, but not as comfortably as I'd like to see, which is a worry because when we play the big sides, we always seem to crumble, especially in the big tournaments. So I think Sterling and Barkley are definitely the two to look out for 2016, especially if Barkley gets a move to a bigger club. Because I think if he joins, say, a United or a Arsenal, maybe, although they have quite a few attacking midfielders, he's going to get more game time with better players, and he's going to get brought on a bit more. So, yeah, I'd say them two, especially on the attack.
Just one more player to mention. Obviously, promising young talent. What are your expectations for Luke Shaw on the national team?
Yeah, Luke Shaw. Obviously, as a United fan, he's looked good. I mean, I wouldn't say he's looked outstanding so far, but yeah, he's not looking too bad. He's quick. He's direct. Exactly what you want from a fullback, really. When you're going to be playing attacking football and you want to try and dominate the ball and get it out wide. Luke Shaw is one of them who will bomb up and down that wing all day. And yeah, he's looking promising. I think Leighton Baines' time is probably come now. So yeah, I definitely reckon Luke Shaw 2016 will be the starter, and hopefully he'll have had quite a few caps in between in the qualifiers and a couple of friendlies to really get him into the side.
Just one more follow-up question. Joe put in the chat, and he mentioned Saido Berahino as a promising talent. And lastly, what do you think of him? And do you feel that Roy Hodgson was right to pick Wayne Rooney as the captain of the national team?
Yeah, I think Saido Berahino, he's had a good year. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, he's had a good year, but I'm not quite sure whether I'd put him in yet because we've still got Daniel Sturridge. You've also got to remember Harry Kane as well. Harry Kane is looking good. If he can continue his form, he's going to be there or thereabouts. So there's going to be quite a few people in the mix. Wayne Rooney will be aging, but Van Gaal's been playing him in central midfield and he's been doing a good job. So that might be his next position, especially now Gerrard has gone. There's a bit of a void to fill in that central midfield for England. So yeah, Harry Kane, Berahino, they both could be there or thereabouts if they continue the form they're currently in.
Yeah, surely big expectations for this England side in terms of youth. I'm going to pass it over to Sir Bob for any questions.
No, it's actually coming to me.
Okay, to Joe then.
Yeah, I want to add on to the discussion of the young English players. I'm getting asked over my Skype feed. What about Fabian Delph? Here's a player who was up and coming, promising, and then once he picked up the call up to the national side, he's made 3 appearances there, but has kind of fallen off of form. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, Fabian Delph. he looks a good player. He does. I think playing for Aston Villa may be his downfall. I think if he can get a move in the summer to a bigger club, he's then got a year, to settle in and gel with his teammates. Whilst I think Roy Hodgson will still pick him because he's obviously talented. He obviously likes him because he selected him before, and why not give him a go? We're coming off the back of a poor World Cup, one of the worst World Cup. I think the worst World Cup in my lifetime. That's 21 years. So, give him a go, and he's got pace. He's got strength. He looks pretty good. Liverpool are linked with him, I believe, for a January bid. Not quite sure whether they will definitely go for him because I think, Gerrard's going. They might boost Jordan Henderson's role in the middle a little more. But yeah, if Liverpool get him, I think that'd be a good move for him and a good move for the national side.
Okay. All right. Well, again, Alex, I want to thank you for coming on tonight and joining us. I know it's getting a little late over there across the pond, as we like to say. But again, we really appreciate everything you do. We appreciate everything that everyone at Houndsports does for us, and it was great to talk to you, and we'd like to have you back again soon.
Yeah, sure. I'd definitely be up for that. Thank you very much. I've loved being on the show, and I'll see you all soon.
Fantastic. Yep. Have a good night.
Thanks, Alex.
Bye. Yep.
And that was Alex McMahon from Houndsport. Guys, what are your thoughts?
Very knowledgeable. Really knows his stuff about world football, and it's great to hear him to speak about anything in terms of topics.
I agree. How about you, Sir Bob? I enjoyed. I think Sir Bob muted his mic again, but it was kind of great that we got.
No, I'm here. You guys faded out.
Oh,
hello.
Yep. No, we're still here. I don't know if you guys.
You guys are fading in and out.
Oh,
yeah, you're fading in and out.
Strange. All right. What are your thoughts on Alex's appearance?
I thought he was a good guest for a Manchester United fan, for sure.
I was going to say, you won't hold it against him for being a Man U fan, right?
No, I don't hold it against him, but I do see in my quality connection here that I am low.
Okay.
It's gone yellow. Do you see it there?
I don't think we can see that from our side. I do have the good old yellow.
Okay, white.
Yeah,
you're in.
Yeah, no big deal. We'll roll with it. But it was fantastic to have him on. I do want to kick it over to you, Sir Bob. So hopefully your connection's good. I'd like you to send us over to the MLS and let's talk about what's going on there. And then I will queue up our last guest of the night, Jon Townsend, who's been chatting with me in the quote unquote Skype chat here. But he's ready to go whenever we want. So let's do some MLS stuff, Sir Bob. Why don't you kick it off?
Okay, I'll try and get through this really quickly. This week, the MLS has released its full schedule. The season's scheduled to open on March 6th with the LA Galaxy versus the Chicago Fire. This year, MLS is adding 2 teams to its playoffs. They are realigning the conferences and welcoming 2 new franchises, Orlando City and the New York City FC. And those 2 teams will face off in their debut game on March 8th at the Citrus Bowl. With the addition of the 2 franchises, MLS has announced that Houston Dynamo and the Sporting Kansas City will be moving to the Western Conference, and that will create 2 10-league conferences. Each team will still play 34 games during the regular season, but this year 12 teams will qualify for the playoffs, with the 6th-place team in both conferences making the postseason. And another important date takes place Thursday with the MLS Super Draft. This upcoming Thursday, so that should be an interesting draft. And maybe we can ask our next guest about that.
Yeah.
In team news, the Chicago Fire have signed Brazilian forward Gulede de Preto from Southampton. De Preto is 34 years old. They have also signed center back Adelton. He'll join from Brazilian Serie A side Bahia, and he is 31 years old. The Cumbers crew have re-signed Federico Higuain to a new contract. The crew did not disclose details, but are calling it the largest contract in team history. FC Dallas have re-signed Chris Seitz following his best season in the MLS, and they have acquired midfielder Atiba Harris in the re-entry draft. The Houston Dynamos have signed former Espinol and La Liga defender Raul Rodriguez, whose contract with the La Liga side Real Espinal was terminated this week, and he is expected to slot into the middle of the Dynamos backline. He's 27. They have also signed Eric Torres as one of their designated players from Chivas, and Torres is the highest scoring Mexican player in MLS history with 22 goals. And one that might interest Rob, the Montreal Impact have announced the acquisition of 21-year-old Argentine central defender Victor Cabrera, and he is on loan from River Plate for the 2015 season. You know anything about him, Rob?
Given that I don't really support River Plate or actually have any affiliations, given I'm a Boca Juniors fan, but I have heard the name before, but I think it's a good acquisition for the Montreal Impact. Either way.
Yeah,
all right.
Coming from Sudamericana champions and league champions.
Right. And Montreal's really, Sir Bob, they're making a couple of moves here. They certainly want to try and get out of the cellar that they were in last year. That's for sure, don't you think?
Yeah, they really had a disappointing season considering they, I believe, made the playoff the year before in that wild card game.
They did. I mean, they've actually advanced in the CONCACAF Champions League.
Yes,
ahead of the New York Red
They
Bull.
got a little bit of money behind them, so I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see these moves. I've always felt that with MLS, and we'll get John on here in a moment. I've always felt with MLS that they should focus a little bit more on the CONCACAF Champions League because that's, to me, an avenue to grow the program or MLS here. It's one way of doing it. I know there's a lot of arguments being made for the promotion relegation. I get it, but I think the MLS needs to really get thrown up onto a world stage, not in the way that we've seen over the past couple weeks with kind of the old man Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard coming over. You want to see them excel in their regional competition. It's a Champions League. What if Barcelona sat there and said, you know what, for Champions League we're going to send our C squad. Not even going to send our A squad or B squad. Let's send our C squad. You'd never see a team like Barca do that, but that's what's happening here, in my opinion, in the U.S. New York Red Bull have Thierry Henry, and I don't even think they brought him to half of these matches for the Champions League. Bradley Wright Phillips didn't play in any of them either, and they suffered because of it. So I think it all goes to that end. And sorry, I'm getting off on my soapbox and cutting you off there, but that's just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, no, those are the kind of tournaments that I can agree with that take place within the league. I like that.
Yeah. You don't like the national stuff.
Yeah, it's not that I don't like it. It's just too much of it, and it seems to happen, especially this African Cup of Nations, just at the wrong time.
Right, especially this tournament, and you couple that with the Asian competition because it's smack dab in the middle of the season.
We're going to miss Torre for the Chelsea game. It's just it's frustrating as a fan.
No, I agree. But at the same time, like I said, there's a sense of pride being able to put on your national team jersey and play in it. For me, that's that's just my own personal opinion. There's a sense of national pride. So
right, which is what the World Cup's for. But anyways, we'll go to New York Red Bulls. Actually, I will skip that considering we'll probably talk a little more in depth about what is happening with the New York Red Bulls and what isn't happening. There's quite a bit going on there these days.
Sure.
So I'll skip ahead to Philadelphia, and they have announced that they've signed Maurice Edu from Stoke City on a permanent deal. He played all of last season for Philadelphia, scoring 3 goals in 31 starts. The Portland Timbers have announced that defender Liam Ridgewell will join English Football League side Wigan Athletic on a short-term loan. Will rejoin the team prior to the 2015 Simple Invitational on February 22nd. So that is a very short-term loan, barely a month. Real Salt Lake has agreed to transfer defender Carlos Salcido to Chivas Guadalajara in Mexico's Liga MX. And per league and club policy, none of the details have been disclosed. Sporting Kansas City, Roger Espinoza returns to Sporting Kansas City. The Hungarian midfielder will return to Sporting Kansas City after the club announced a new deal for the 28-year-old Tuesday. Espinosa played for Sporting Kansas City from 28 to 2012 before joining Wigan. He had some success in Wigan, helped them to win an FA Cup final over Manchester City in 2013, but he rarely featured for the Latics in the championships this season, and his contract was terminated last month. And finally, the Toronto FC have confirmed that the club is targeting Real Betis centre-back Damien Perquis? Okay. Anyone? Okay, I don't know that. They also have expressed interest in Sunderland striker Jose Altidore. And one that might interest you, Joe, rumors out of Italy have TFC in for Juventus attacker Sebastian Giovinco.
Well, that actually would be a good move for both Toronto FC and for Sebastian Giovinco. He's a Juve product, but he's been riding the bench. When you've got Fernando Llorente out there, you've got Carlos Tevez playing out there for you. They added Kingsley Coman. They've got Alvaro Morata. They've got such great, they've got a good crop of strikers at Juve right now, and Giovinco's fifth on that list easily, I think, in everybody's book. I mean, he's a nice little striker, and I stress the word little, but but he's quick. He tends to be one of those nuisance type players that tends to put a lot of pressure because he has a lot of speed. So he's one of those guys that I think Toronto FC, I think he'd come over to the United States, and I think he would do very, very well in MLS. He would be one of the better players in the league. And I think this also goes, and this is something I want, as soon as we get John on here in a second, we're going to get into with, what kind of league is MLS? Is it a minor league side for, the EPL or whatever, or is it something that can be its own product, for lack of a better term, where they be a much stronger side and challenge these regional competitions like the CONCACAF.
How old is Giovinco? Approximately younger?
He's young. I think he's 24.
27.
Yeah, that's kind of player. Yeah, that's
27.
Even 27. Yeah.
Yeah, that's still a good side. Steven Gerrard's 36.
Yeah.
Lampard's 32. He's got 5 years on all of those guys at least. So that's why I think it would just be a better. That's the kind of guy I want to see MLS pursue, not Steven Gerrard. Okay.
And I have one more thing on the Toronto FC. For those people out there following at Michael Bradley on Twitter, I'm sorry to disappoint, but Michael Bradley does not have a Twitter account.
Oh, well, there you go. It's something that's funny you should mention that. We were talking about this yesterday, you and I, Rob, with Francesco Totti. Totti has a quote-unquote Twitter account, although he hasn't posted on it since 2011. He has almost 200,000 followers and he's only following 2 people, and they're probably relatives or something like that at best. But
did you tell Rob the follower I got last week, Joe?
No, I didn't. I didn't. Go ahead. Why don't you break the news?
Brad Davis. Houston Dynamo's Brad Davis.
Yeah.
So hopefully
certified account.
Yeah. So
so I would maybe we can get him on this show. Yeah. I don't know how he followed me, but
it's funny how you mentioned that he follows me as well.
Wow, that's great.
I'm the only guy I'm left out.
Hey, you should follow him.
I do. That's the thing.
I don't know, then.
Well, you probably haven't looked back. He might follow you now, Joe.
Yeah, I'll unfollow him and refollow him, see if that jogs it. So, so while we're sitting here chit chatting, I'm gonna add in John here. He's like,
so that was the MLS in 5 minutes.
There you go, and that's you said that's all you needed, and you did squeeze in a ton of news there. But I got to say, because I've been watching the other chat, so I would say the guy with the coolest sunglasses in town is currently on our show. I'd like to welcome from oh boy, I lost it here, from These Footy Times, Jon Townsend. John, it's Joe Usello. How are you tonight?
Joe, I'm well. How are you? Good.
It was a long way to get there to introduce you, but we're rookies at all of this. This is only 57 shows. So first thing, I want to kick it off. You heard the discussion of MLS. I would assume you'd heard us talking about it a little bit. Strictly the players that have been coming into the side here, coming into the league. In my opinion, the Frank Lampards of the world and the Steven Gerrards of the world are not the way MLS should be concentrating Even the Kakas down in Orlando City. These aren't the guys that you really need to focus on. In my opinion, a guy like Sebastian Giovinco, who's not getting time at Juventus, but is certainly a quality striker. He's played on the Italian national team. 27 years old, younger guy. This is the kind of guy that MLS should be saying, hey, you know what? This is the guy we want. He's got major European experience. He's played in the Champions League. He's played in the Europa. He's played on the World Cup stage for Italy. This is the guy that we want. What are your thoughts on the crop of players that are coming into MLS these days?
I think MLS needs to decide what kind of league it wants to be. For guys like Frank Lampard, if he ever shows up, Steven Gerrard, Kaká, they're kind of following the business model that even the old NASL followed, which was to bring in these expired or near expiring foreign stars, and then you accomplish a couple of things. You're going to accomplish ticket sales, which NYCFC is learning the hard way about those shady wheelings and dealings, and then you're going to sell shirts. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think that these players bring a lot of they don't bring a lot of quality, because they certainly do. But you're right. I think if we can get players in more toward their prime, I think the league legitimizes the move itself. One of the things that since 1996, starting with Lothar Matthäus and a couple of the who was the Mexican goalie? Jorge Campos.
Jorge Campos, yeah.
So you got these players that come in and they don't really perform, but they get paid a lot of money and they fill the stands. But it makes the fans question: is this the type of league we want to be, where these guys come in, and most followers of MLS already know who Frank Lampard is, already know who Steven Gerrard, Kaká, right. And so they want to see these players, and it's for a lot of fans, it's going to be the first time and maybe the only time they'll ever see them live. However, I contend that MLS, if it really wants to establish itself as a better players league, it's got to bring players in, both from their academies, and it has to bring players from other places in, more toward their prime.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. And these guys over the hill, to me, it reminds me too much of the old NASL where they bring Pelé in late and they bring Beckenbauer late. You know what I mean? It's just, it becomes the old folks' home, and you just don't want to see that. So I would like to see the much younger guys, even the guys that are kind of mid-range. Guys, even in the championship, we talk about Rhodes over at Blackburn. I can't think of his first name now, but he's another young guy, good striker. Come over to MLS and shine. I think this is the way the league should be focused on moving forward. So I'm going to throw you over to Rob. I know Rob has our first question, so Rob, fire away.
Yes, hi, John. I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
What do you think of this U.S. squad that Jurgen Klinsmann's called up for the January camp and friendlies? Do you feel like this is probably an experiment squad, or is this more of a squad looking to use for the Gold Cup the following summer?
I think it's a good mix. I think he's brought in, 7 players that were on the World Cup roster. So let me think here. And then, so usually with the U.S. men's national team, January camp is usually a pretty experimental time for the coach and the program to reevaluate. The MLS season's over. A lot of the more seasoned and established European players are locking into their later or the second part of their season. What I noticed out of this roster is he's brought in some of the guys that you may not have normally expected him to bring in, which tells me he's gearing up for the Gold Cup, and he doesn't know a lot about how this group has evolved since the World Cup. Guys like Matt Beasler, Clint Dempsey, Michael Bradley, mixed disc group who didn't see any time, Jermaine Jones, Nick Armando, and I think Chris Wondolowski. I raise an eyebrow at a lot of these inclusions, only because what I would like to see in these January camps is bringing the next crop of players and the next generation of players in. But this mix of older players with some younger talent does show me that they are gearing up for that he needs to get a result as a coach. in a tournament that I think a lot of U.S. fans are a little bit critical of Jurgen as of late with his criticism of the U.S. game, and so he's playing it safe for me in this. And there are some players that I don't feel merit a place in, and Breck Shea might be one that I would question only because his play as of late and his attitude and some of the things that have come out. I don't know that his inclusion is really telling us what we don't already know, but. That's what these camps are for. The January camp is notoriously tough. And then get a guy like Miguel Ibarra in there from the NASL, I think is a really good way to continue to diversify the player pool. I think there's 22 MLS players in the camp though, which is really a big number. But January camp is what it's for.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Do you see any names that should have been on that squad?
I think the names that I would say if you weren't playing in Europe, I want to see more of how Jeff Cameron. He's one of those. I don't think he's in the squad. I can't recall, but so if I'm wrong, let me know. But he's one of those players who. Watching him play at Stoke City, that's not going to bring out the best in anybody how they play. But when he was put in the World Cup, he was operating as a defender, as a midfielder, and so I don't know where he fits in the national setup. But I do hear in stateside, I do hear how good he is. But then you get guys like Matt Beasler in there and. Shane O'Neill. I don't know if these guys are even any better than Jeff Cameron, but I understand that he's locked into a relegation battle. So that's one that I can see not being included in.
Okay, and just one more last question before I pass it over to Sir Bob. What do you think are the expectations for DeAndre Yedlin moving from Seattle Sounders to Spurs in England?
I think the first thing DeAndre Yedlin's going to figure out is the speed of play is going to be faster than what he's used to. And what I would like to see DeAndre Yedlin do is learn, maybe as an understudy. I guess Kyle Walker might be the understudy he'd be tasked with learning from. I'd like to see him get some minutes, but I'm always concerned when U.S. players go over to England, and Tottenham's a respectable club. It's a good club, and I feel DeAndre Yedlin's technical ability might be exposed, or lack of technical ability. And I don't mean he's not a technical player. I mean he does rely on his athleticism, and the game is just quicker, and it's going to be a good test for him to see how well he can integrate into a defensive line that is very technical. Some of the defenders that they have on that team are both just as fast as, if not faster than, DeAndre Yedlin, but they're also able to play with the ball and be sound in possession. So it's going to be interesting, and I'm excited to see how he fits in. I hope he's not thrown into the deep end and exposed and then relegated to the bench and kind of buried in the mire like some Americans have gone over and been consigned to. So, to me, I want it to be a controlled integration to the Tottenham side.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Sir Bob for any questions.
Hi, John. I'm just looking at your picture in the chat there with the sunglasses, and I think you just flopped a set of aces, so I'm going to fold. I guess I wanted to ask you about the MLS Super Draft that's coming up this Thursday. Can we expect any surprises, and who do you think is going to go in the top three?
In my mind, I don't know that there's going to be any surprise. I tend to look at MLS drafts as they're an enigma to me because we do this mock draft here, and the bloggers and everyone kind of says what they think is going to transpire. I think the top three, I would say Kiri Shelton and Romario Williams, and I think the other one, I'm torn on this, is Miguel Aguilar from San Francisco and Kyle Larin out of Connecticut. These are relatively difficult decisions because the transition from the college game to the professional game, especially in the United States, for some players it's a seamless transition. For others, it's a completely new environment, and so one of the things that I always look at is just because they were successful at the college level, I don't know that they're going to be successful in the MLS level. But I don't see any standouts. I've watched some of the combine footage, and I've been like any combine. It's nervy. It's everyone's playing for themselves, so there's not much. If I were a coach, I'd have a hard time gleaning out the quality if I didn't already see it in the college level.
Okay, so I guess I already have an answer to my next question, but I'll ask it anyways. Being a TFC fan and with Toronto having 3 picks in the first round, is there anyone that can be an immediate benefit to Toronto, a la Nick Hageland last season?
I think the thing that Toronto now are they losing? Jermaine Defoe? Is that something?
It looks like they probably are. Yeah, there's 3 players they want to bring in, and I'm assuming those 3 players are only coming if Defoe's leaving.
I think what they need to do is show up their defense. I think one of the things that I've noticed out of them is maybe a Connor Donovan, Tim Parker. These are players that could probably fit into the central defense. And then I think that defensive midfield, if Michael Bradley is going to be given free reign to run the midfield, I think they're going to need a holding midfielder. So
does Warren Crivell fit that bill or no?
Who's that?
Crivell?
I think so, and I also think Nick Beasler out of Notre Dame is a good one because in my opinion, you need someone disciplined who's going to hold while Bradley does the box-to-box work. One of the hard things about Toronto FC is they spent all this money, and then again it was a disappointing year, and they've had a lot of front office and changes and whatnot. So I think their best bet is to acquire the targets that are not the marquee signings, but just guys that are going to go in and be cogs in the machine. I think that would be a really good move for Toronto FC to start building the foundation to start remedying some of the problems they had last year.
Okay, so out of the 3 Canadian teams, Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto, who do you think has the best shot at making the playoffs this year, if any of the 3?
I would say Vancouver, only because they seem to thrive off that rivalry in that region. I don't see the guys like Tybert as he's kind of a catalyst player for me on the Whitecaps. I do think that they play a style that is extremely MLS friendly. They're fast, and they kind of run and gun. And so I think if I'm going to rank them, I would be Vancouver, Toronto, and then Montreal. If I were going to say the 3 were going to have a chance at the playoffs.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Vancouver's got the best shot, but I'm hoping Toronto can sneak in with the extra spot this season.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to send you back to Joe. He's got a few questions for you. Thanks a lot, John.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to ask you. I'm going to take you back a little deeper. I was told by somebody that you actually previously played in Holland.
Yeah, as a youth player, I was. It was an interesting story. I was trying to figure out. I think I was 12 and 13 years old. I went two times, and I went over the first time as a guest player from a team out of Texas that was put together by a guy named Ed Puskarich, who used to play for the Dallas Burn. Mm-hmm. It was kind of a select team of young players who came from all over Texas. So you had some of the good youth clubs in Texas, so the Dallas Texans and Solar, and so back then I was playing at a tournament called Dallas Cup, and he had seen me play and it's one of the biggest youth tournaments in the world, and they needed a guest player, and he approached my father, kind of unbeknownst to me, and said, "Hey, I'm going to Holland. I'm taking some players over. Do you think in 3 months when we revisit this conversation, your son would want to go?" And to be honest, I was more than excited to go. So I went over and I stayed with a host family and played for a local club and the feeder club to FC20. And we trained, and there was plenty of learning curves that I had to overcome, because the level of training and technical training over there is unlike anything I had ever experienced as a youth player in the United States. And then I came back once school started, and my parents, asked me how I liked it, and they saw that there was a maturation in my play and in my, just my overall personality. And then I went over again, the same type of deal, stayed with the host family and trained and played, and stayed over for a little bit longer this time, and missed some school, but it was a fantastic opportunity, and it's one of those things that I'll never forget, and it really helped me as a player and as a student of the game.
Okay. Now, based on your experience, what do they do differently over in Europe in terms of training and education to prep them for the World's Game? What are they doing over there that we're not doing here that we need to do here?
Wow, how much time do we have?
We got all night.
The biggest thing that I'll hit on is over there. We always get in this discussion about if only our best athletes played soccer here and whatnot. And I'm gonna identify a couple key points. The first point is pay to play. Most of the clubs and the local leagues over there are subsidized by government money. Therefore, I think it's a base fee of maybe 120 euros these days, and even maybe less. Mm-hmm. And kids aren't priced out of the game at a young age. So it not being a chore to go to practice or a chore to play a game, it's more of a lifestyle. So the exposure to playing and training is it's not so much that it's that different in terms of what we do with high-level training here. It's just more frequent there. Mm-hmm. And they focus on things that we don't focus on here. So the first thing I would say is they focus on technique, learning the fundamentals. When I was in Holland, I was told if you can't pass, you can't play. And so the difference is when I was coming back to the United States, you put the big guy up top and let him score all the goals. And for some reason, when you're 7 years old, the championship matters and trophies matter and standings matter. And over there, they don't keep score until you're about 14 years old. So they learn how to play the positions. They learn how to play, simple stuff. And then the other thing that I noticed was when kids are not at practice, they're playing in the streets. There's a street culture, so they're playing pickup games. They're uncoached and they're learning leadership skills through these pickup games. And you look at the American psyche, and it's very reward heavy. It's I need a coach to tell me I did a good job, and my mom and dad to approve of this. I need to ask permission for this, and over there they just grab a ball and they go play. It's a simplification of a very simple game. Over here, it's almost like we coach the creativity out of our players. So I would say, just frequency, learning the basics, and then loving the game. It's a lifestyle over there. Where here, it's an extracurricular.
Okay, you wrote an article recently about MLS, or at least I believe it was MLS. I've got the article up here. Can MLS produce its own Lionel Messi? And I want to change the question just slightly. I want to ask you more or less, can the United States produce its own Lionel Messi with the systems that we have in place?
The United States can. MLS, in my eyes, probably not. And I'll tell you that this is not a swipe at MLS. It's in the United States, we have an unrivaled infrastructure. We've got training facilities at universities that are better than a lot of professional football teams in Europe. We have access to some of the best, if we're talking about, accessibility to the game. Most kids have a computer. Most kids have a home to go to. Most kids have parents that were willing to drive them any distance to go play and train and learn. MLS, I wrote that article in response to a marketing video that MLS had thrown out there, and I actually I thought it was funny at first, and then the more I kind of looked into it, I kind of had to address it because, in my opinion, leagues don't produce players, clubs do. Right. So when you ask me if the United States could produce one, I'm sure that there's a player here or on their way to a great career who is going to probably bypass the MLS academy system and go to Europe. And that kind of gets back to the question, did the United States produce them or did Europe produce them? But optimistically, I think in the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to see a different class of player with maybe more access to the game other than the 20 MLS outlets. I think I don't want to turn this into promotion relegation because that's a rabbit hole that we could be in here forever. But I do feel that there is a potential for producing great players. My contention is that we price these players out relatively young. When the academy stuff gets expensive, when travel and whatnot becomes a differentiator and people say, hey, I don't think I can play this anymore, I'm going to go do baseball because it's cheaper, or basketball. So United States can, MLS, under the current operations model, cannot. I think every time MLS brings in a 35-year-old star from England, paying them $6 million, that $6 million in my eyes could go to development. Right. Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, great players. They're not gaining any more fans than they've already had. So I find it to be a little bit convoluted. Don Garber has recently been on record for saying, "Hey, we're putting $30 million to development for all the MLS academies," which it's a good number. However, I think if we really think about how we could improve MLS, if they wanted to produce a Messi, they would put, $100 million, what it costs for one team to buy into MLS, put that toward development, see what that gets you. And the other thing that I really feel is, I ended an article with a line that says United States or MLS would do much better to produce its own version of James Milner before it would produce a Messi. To go after the top player, in my opinion, it could be Ronaldo or whoever, and say we could produce that here without having produced the James Milner or someone like a Eden Hazard. Why would we go to the top and assume that that's even possible without producing these other players that are role players? Right. So I don't know if that answers the question, but it was not well received by many in MLS. It was well received by everyone out of MLS. So maybe it was the right thing to write, but it's been lively. It's been a good discussion. Right. Well,
my first response is, if you want, we can get Ted Westervelt on now and have that discussion. But I do agree with you 100% that we do need to produce more James Milners and that sort of player. And I think the American persona is actually more set up to produce a hardworking James Milner than it is to produce the finesse Lionel Messi, if you know what I mean. That's kind of is bred into the cloth of Americans. Period. It's just we built this country on hard work. It would make sense to have a hardworking midfielder be the symbol of America, and we should be proud that we build a James Milner, and we should try to do it again, in my opinion. And I agree with you that the systems aren't in place, and I was really interested in what you said. I don't know if you noticed the chat here, but we went back and forth about in Holland not keeping score until you're 14 makes a ton of sense and it's something that I relate back to even just last night, going back into playing indoor soccer for the first time after an injury. As much as these guys can run and as much as these guys, can outwork you because it's just how they play, they don't have that first touch. They don't have that trap. Do you know what I mean? And that's something that you will not. If you take that kid, I don't care how fast he is or how much you think he's a great player, you go throw him over in Europe and he's nothing. That's my point. And that kid, those kids, they just don't learn that first touch, and that first touch is everything. And I tell everybody the difference between a Division I soccer player in the United States in college and the Division II soccer player in the United States in college and a Division III soccer player is the first touch. Okay, and the higher up you are in those divisions, the better that first touch is. And that first touch is everything because it allows you to do something. So it's not important how many goals we score and if we beat the other team. How did we move the ball around? That's the important stuff that we need to develop in these kids moving forward. I mean, your thoughts on that? I mean, am I totally?
No, you're spot on. I think there's a culture shift that is going to happen as the millennials take some responsibility and learn that a lot of what we value or they value is off base. I don't know how many kids are going to remember their U7 championship game where mom and dad were screaming on the sidelines and they got a participation ribbon. But I do know that in Europe, the kids aren't put under the pressure with a proverbial gun to their head where they have to win. It's, I always say happy players, will stay in the game longer. And in Europe, not every kid's going to be professional. The problem is our exceptional is Europe's average or South America's average. And I don't mean that as an insult. It's just, if you read a lot of American soccer journalism, it's more cheerleading than it is reporting. And a lot of it comes down to, we worked really hard, we covered a lot of distance, and we showed a lot of effort and, team spirit. If you look at when I went to Holland and I went to Germany too, those were givens. Like if you weren't working hard, you weren't even in the conversation. So it was, sometimes you talk about this whole distance covered. How far did we run? How many times did you have the ball away that you had to run, or how much did you get pulled out of position because you were making that first touch that turned into 3 touches? And so it kind of speaks to your point where, we're creating this culture where winning's important when it really isn't until the players are developed. When the players are developed and they're mature and they're able to actually absorb and process things, then we can bring winning into it in competition. But you can have competition without league standings. If you've ever watched a youth team scrimmage or a U9 game, those kids want to win. But when you kind of throw a trophy out there, I just think we're missing the point. So it's a good point. It's a salient point, and I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. Now I want to take it a little further because it's still on the same topic, and this is kind of the last thing I wanted to have you for the night. And one thing Sir Bob wanted me to mention before we go forward is in Canada they're doing the same thing where they're not keeping score, and again it makes all the sense in the world to do things like that. Sometimes it's tough on kids. Kids inherently want to win, and little kids are mean. I'm coaching a U8 team right now with my daughter. Little kids are mean, and they want to win, and they want to score, and they want to keep score because it's kind of bred into them. I think it's tough to kind of take it out of them. It starts with the parents. It starts with the coaches, but it also moves beyond that. And I think the sooner we do take that out of the system, I think the better off we'll be. I do want to ask, because obviously. A very big friend of the show, probably one of the biggest friends of this show, is Victor Scamorza, who you know very, very well, who runs Year Zero Soccer. He says you're on the board of directors for Year Zero. I'd like to know what you do for Year Zero and tell us a little bit more about it.
Year Zero has been in my head for a long time. The name is something new, but the concept, and this comes from my experience as a kid in Europe, I always wondered when I was growing up playing why I didn't have a lot of friends to play with outside of that structured team environment with the clubs. So I spent a lot of time kicking a ball against a field house wall or dribbling on my own in a parking lot or, basically playing pickup games with anyone who would play. And what Year Zero Soccer is it's almost rewinding the clocks back, and taking out the bad, keeping the good, and rebuilding American soccer and even Canadian soccer to the point where we have open access. So if that's going to your local community and writing, hey, can we convert these unused tennis courts into futsal courts? Mm-hmm. Could you support that? Could we build these things, I call them football cages, soccer cages? Essentially if you have like a hockey rink, with fencing and these goals that don't need nets. If you build it, would they come? And I feel that as soccer's popularity is growing in North America and Canada and the United States, I feel that Year Zero Soccer is just one of many missions where a group of people, I bring the soccer input, the curriculum, the coaching, the playing experience, and I let the business people, Victor's one of them, who make the decisions to, okay, how do we affect change in X community, and how can we translate that change over to a community on the other side of the country? So, hey, here in Chicago or here in St. Louis or here in LA, we did this. What are you guys doing over in West Virginia? What are you guys doing in Florida? Is it like this? And the mission is to provide a safe place for kids to play, or anybody to play, it doesn't have to be kids, that is free of the politics, free of this winning culture, and just give them the same chances that a lot of kids have around the world. So one of the most heartbreaking things that I see is we have all this real estate, and I go by a park every day on the way to work, and there are these beautiful fields. No one ever uses them, but there's these signs that say "keep off the grass." And every time a kid goes on there, or kicks the ball, or walks his dog around there, someone is saying, "Hey, get off the grass! Get off!" So Year Zero is a way to create a collaborative and uniform front to open up access to soccer development, and it's involving YMCA's, Boys and Girls Clubs of America, local archdiocese, keeping neighborhood soccer. Mm-hmm. I think one of the great things about American soccer history is these clubs that have this rich history with their communities, and a lot of those have expired or died off, and this would be a great way to say, hey, you know what, we're going to instill this culture again, and we're going to bring back that pride and build this around our communities. So community fostering soccer is kind of Year Zero. I think the reason I chose that is, I think in the 1970s, or when NASL came and a lot of foreign coaches came over, all you needed was an accent and you had a coaching job, and maybe that wasn't the best thing. So this would be an effort to say, okay, well, let's start over again, clean slate, and let's try to create a good soccer culture, not just a community, but a culture. So we don't have to have this argument where, what if our best athletes played soccer? Well, what if they don't? We still have great soccer players. So it's really just my dream, and trying to make it become a reality and help out the next generation and many generations long after I'm gone. And this is something that, as I've grown older, I want to leave something. I want to see something happen other than the same bad patterns repeat themselves. Yeah.
Now, for me as an outsider, but knowing what kind of skills you need to do to survive in the game, it just makes sense to have these smaller type courts, even fenced in. I always picture just driving up the West Side Highway in New York City. You see all those fenced in basketball courts and kids playing on them every single day. But we don't see that for soccer, and something like that, a smaller court where you have kids going in, playing 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5. They learn ball control, and they learn it outside the realm of rules and regulations and coaches and that sort of thing. And I think that's one of the best ways to learn this game. When I was a kid, that was one thing we did. We got together as 3 or 4 kids in the backyard, and you're running around kicking the ball around. It was fenced in. There were no coaches. There were no necessarily rules or anything like that. And you became a better footballer because of the openness that you were allowed to play in. And I think that the concept of having these smaller fields and allowing these kids, the freedom without being coached and harassed by parents and the sideline stuff and all that other stuff, it just makes sense to me. And I think it's one of the great ways that we should be looking at the entire game to grow the game, internally. And that's my opinion. So, I wanted to pass it over to Bob. Bob has one more thing to say before we let you go tonight.
Sounds good.
Yep. I mean, Rob. I'm sorry. Rob wants it, not Bob.
Yeah, no, I was just going to mention, I guess I can use an example of the story that I could use. I'm Paraguayan American, first generation, and my parents came to this country, and this was during the late 80s, in the 1980s, and around that time, soccer was in recession in terms of how popularity was, and it had to take only the 1994 World Cup to bring back that popularity and so forth. So it's just kind of interesting how they used to tell me, oh, back in the late 80s, there wasn't many soccer fields around the New York City area. And it's just interesting to see how we've gone from the late 80s to now in 2015.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's one thing I want to add. There's a soccer field right outside of Yankee Stadium last I checked, and I've seen kids playing on it during baseball season.
No, I mean, maybe you can get NYCFC to play there too, but
there's going to be a soccer field inside Yankee Stadium this summer.
No, I think the point you guys are all hitting on is so important, because we want to create the biggest thing. All my friends in England always give me grief about is, American players aren't thinkers; they just do. They're taskers, and maybe that's true.
Yeah.
But I think the really, if I am right in my analysis, and I think I am, only because I've seen how other cultures do this, and I've existed in these cultures. We get these soccer cages going. We get these kids playing. You don't have defensive-minded players so much where they're afraid to go past that halfway line. You get kids that are willing to take each other on and play because it's so fast and it's such a transition game. And the reason I bring that up is you look at our basketball, our street culture, and how you look at the average point guard or whatnot. They're not afraid to go at a player and attack that and go try to score. At watching U20s, I think we've had 28 shots on goal in this recent tournament, and 28 shots and only 4 have been on target. So we are clearly lacking this attacking killer instinct in our soccer, and this is at the college level, this is at the high school level, this is the professional level. You look at the clinical finishers of the world. They come from South America, they come from Europe. They're these. Africa. They're players that come from humble beginnings, but they play freely and they don't worry about missing. You look at an American kid, he misses the goal. You look like he lost his best friend. He's going to get yelled at. And the best players around the world from these humble beginnings, they have short-term memories and they're able to just get on with it. And you guys are correct. It's we need to continue this popularity and growth of the sport. And maybe this is just one way of many that we can actually make a lasting impact.
Yeah, I agree. Just to rewind one of your statements, you talk about your friends in England say that we don't produce any thinkers. I would actually agree with that, and I've seen that time and time again playing for the past 30 years. And now that I'm dating myself, you see it. A lot of people don't anticipate. They don't think. There are very, very few of them out there, and you play with them daily. There are doers. There are plenty of doers. There are guys that you can teach to run to a space. There are guys that you can make workaholics, but there are no thinkers that conceptually think of the game and think of what to do. And unfortunately, that's the kind of person you need to turn around after they're done playing and become a coach.
Yeah, and if you think about it, look at our popular sports. I mean, football is orchestrated, and you got coordinators and playbooks. Basketball to some degree, baseball you have these plays that are called out, so a lot of the players that are coming through in American sports they're not conditioned to think for themselves. Right. So I think the takeaway here is, yes, they need to get back in the coaching. We need more former players to get back in the coaching and to correct the wrongs and help, but also we don't need. We don't need taskers. We need free thinkers, and that's on and off the field.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. I was going to say, not all former players should be coaching.
No,
there have been and I'm sure you've seen them. There have been plenty of great players that you've probably played with that you just look at them and go, this guy
can't let it go.
Right. Well, he's got it in his heart in terms of what to do. But in his brain, it's just not there, and he just doesn't think enough about the game to understand it. But he could be a fantastic player. It's just and we see it in all of sport, where we've got those guys that are out there in the field and you watch them play and you're like, that guy's going to make a great coach one of these days, because you can just see that they have the ability to process the game in their head. Mm-hmm. Whether that be football, baseball, hockey, or soccer. So I agree with you 100%. John, I want to thank you for coming on tonight and spending a great deal of time with us. This was a fantastic chat, and we definitely want to have you back, especially when we get closer to MLS season.
Sure.
Have you back, and we'll rehash coaching changes and all that stuff in MLS and maybe pick a winner. But we'd love to have you back.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right. Good night.
Good night.
And that was Jon Townsend, guys. What an awesome, awesome guest. And Sir Bob, you said it perfectly. He knows his stuff. He's just amazing. What were your thoughts? What other thoughts did you have on him, Sir Bob?
Yeah, he was great. I'm just hoping you're not getting him to replace me for the MLS.
Boy, he could do it on the fly, huh?
Yeah, he knows his stuff. And I'm looking forward to talking to him again as the season gets closer.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, Rob, I hate to stick it on you, but we have a Blackburn banter that we don't have a Blackburn fan to talk about. Do you have the result from this weekend?
Yeah, I do. Too much of Ben's despair if he is listening to this. Blackburn lost 1-0 to Wolverhampton yesterday.
Okay, so where do they stand right now? Do you have the standings for the championship?
I do. They are currently 10th in the championship.
Well, I mean, they're still not. How far are they out of qualifying for the playoff positions?
I think it's 7.
Is it 7? I'll check. Let me check 1 second. Yes, he's correct. 7th for the championship playoffs.
That's not bad at all. I mean, that's just a couple of games. You get a couple of teams.
It's 7th, but it's like 5 or 6 teams to climb. It's getting harder. The more teams that you get in between it's not just 1 or 2 you need to fall now. Now it's 4 or 5.
Yeah, the thing is about this league, it's really close.
Yeah, it's a tough league.
Tough league.
Yeah.
Do you want me to give you the match for next week?
Yeah. What's going on?
Blackburn will be going against Wigan.
Ah, there you go. I mean, and Wigan, if I remember correctly, wasn't Wigan having trouble staying up in the
I think they're in the relegation zone. Yeah,
they're in the relegation. That's what I thought. So,
and something we have never mentioned yet that might be a bit of a surprise to some people is Wigan's former manager Owen Coyle is now the manager of the Houston Dynamo.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He is.
So that's interesting.
And that's a replacement of Dominic Kinnear, if I remember correctly. So that's going to be that's a great addition for them. We'll
see, because the MLS is a different game. A lot of coaches that have come over really haven't had success.
No, that's true, but I think
it's a different league. Like we in the closed league and all that stuff. It is a little different for them coming over.
Sure. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. He already has a good base of players there at Houston. So
and they've made a few signings. So
yeah, certainly something that he could play with. So, Sir Bob, why don't you take us over to your ManCity Corner and we'll close out the night.
Okay, well, we'll keep this short since it was such a terrible game for Manchester City. They went ahead on a header goal by Fernandinho in the 74th minute, but then 4 minutes later, as much as I hate to say this, Joe Hart pulled a real gaffer, and when the goalie comes out like that, he's got to get the ball. He missed it completely, and Naismith made him pay for it, so that one ended up 1-1. I guess, as Pellegrini said before the game, if you were offered a tie going to Goodison Park before the game, you'd probably take it. It's not such a bad result, but given all the chances Manchester City had in the game, it was a terrible result.
Right.
Probably the player of the game was, surprise, David Silva, I would think. Thought he was head and shoulders above everybody on the pitch.
Yep. I believe it. So who do they have coming up this weekend?
Just give me 1 second. Arsenal. Yes, Arsenal in the game of the week that we picked.
That's right. We did talk about that. So fantastic. Any closing remarks before we put a bow on this one?
Oregon's up 7-0.
Oregon's up 7-0, so Victor Scamorza will be very excited that
Ronaldinho finished 26th in PokerStars PCA main event today.
That's right, Ronaldo did finish.
The real Ronaldo, not Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo.
He's turned from soccer to poker, so
maybe we should get him on.
He is actually sponsored by PokerStars.
That's right. He is a PokerStars guy, so. Congratulations to him. Maybe we'll see him at the World Series this year. We'll have to all go out to Vegas.
I wouldn't doubt it that he'll be there for sure.
Yep. So, all right, boys, let's roll the closing music. And I think I have to turn it down, actually, because it might be a little too loud. Yeah, it is a little too loud. So, coming up next week, obviously we're efforting a couple other guests, but currently we have booked solid Nabe Asfar from Houndsport, who is their soccer chief editor. So I'm excited to have him, and we'll be working on a few other guests. So thanks again tonight for joining us, Oluwada Lotfi from Paris, Alex McMahon from Houndsport, and Jon Townsend from These Footy Times and Year Zero. So I'm very excited to have all three of them tonight. All three of them did a great job. It was a lot of fun. So for episode 57 of Low Limit Football, I am Joe Usello.
And I'm Roberto Rojas.
And I'm Mike Orr.
And thanks for joining us. We will see you guys again next week, and good night.
Thanks for listening.
Good night.